This is the joint convention of the school committee and Board of Selectmen. I've got some formalities to go through. After the joint convention, the Board of Selectmen will be having its normal meeting, but we'll be taking a break, I think, before the normal meeting begins. So now for the formalities, we have two folks on the telephone, Ben Chang and Mike Glover, and pursuant to this board's authority under 940 CMR 29-10(8), Ben Chang and Mike Glover will be participating remotely via telephone due to geographic distance. There's a quorum physically present, and all votes taken will be recorded by roll call. Messrs. Chang and Glover will be allowed to vote. So that takes care of the remote participation formality. So now for the joint convention formality. So I'm now calling to order the joint convention. This joint convention is being held in accordance with General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 11, to fill a vacancy in the school committee till the next annual town election, which takes place. We set the date, I believe, May 2nd, is it? Yes. Section 11 requires that the remaining members of the school committee and the members of the Board of Selectmen meet in joint convention to fill the current school committee opening. I'll now nominate Melissa Goff as clerk of the convention. On motion, so are there any other nominations? Hearing none, I will close the nominations. Oh, actually, we have to vote to close the nominations. Really? Okay, we're doing this.
I think to close the nominations, you probably have to do a roll call. Then votes by roll call. Oh, everything.
Okay, so we'll be doing all our votes as a joint convention in alphabetical order. So first one up is Ben Chang. Will you vote to close the nominations? Helen Cholupsky?
Yes.
Nancy Daly?
Aye.
Ben Franco?
Aye.
Michael Glover? Michael?
Michael, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Bernard Green?
Yes.
Nancy Heller?
Yes.
Beth Jackson Stram?
Yes.
David Pollock? Barbara Scotto? I vote yes. Susan Wolf Ditkoff?
Yes.
Okay, the motions are now closed.
I would like to, I move to appoint Selectman Oshinsky as the chair of the convention. Do we need a second?
Second.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, second, isn't that nice?
And I'll move that we close the nominations. All those in favor of appointing myself as chair, say yes. Ben Chang?
Yes.
Helen Cholupsky?
Yes.
Nancy Daly?
Aye.
Ben Franco?
Yes.
Bernard Green?
Yes.
I missed Michael Glover.
Yes.
This is the high math counting up by one. Nancy Heller?
Aye.
Beth Jackson Stram?
Yes.
David Pollock?
Yes.
Barbara Scotto?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. And,
Yes.
okay. So, now we're on to,
Did you close the nominations for Melissa, but I believe we actually have to vote for her now?
oh, we do,
Yeah, I think
okay, and then we have to vote for me as, okay.
roll call vote.
Okay, another roll call vote. This is to appoint Melissa Goff as chair,
Is clerk.
as clerk. Please say yes or aye. Ben Chang?
Yes.
Helen Cholupsky? Nancy Daly?
Aye.
Ben Franco?
Yes.
Michael Glover?
Yes.
Bernard Green?
Yes.
Nancy Heller?
Aye.
Beth Jackson Stram?
Yes.
David Pollock?
Yes.
Barbara Scotto?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. And Susan Wolf Ditkoff?
Yes.
Okay, now the next vote is for me to chair the convention. All those in favor, please say aye or yes. Ben Chang,
Yes.
Helen Charlebski,
Yes.
Nancy Daly,
Aye.
Ben Franco,
Yes.
Michael Glover,
Yes.
Beth Jackson Stram,
Yes.
Nancy Heller, I'm going out of order.
I vote yes also.
Oh.
Bernard Green.
Sorry. Okay, you got that. Nancy Heller,
Aye.
Beth Jackson Stram, yeah,
Yes.
okay. David Pollock, Barbara Scotto.
Yes.
I'll vote yes, and Susan Wolf did cuff.
Trying to run up the vote count there, weren't you, Neil, by getting people to vote for you twice?
There you go. Okay, so now that we've gone through all those formalities, I'll just say a couple of words. This has been a very interesting process for me, and I'm just so gratified that so many qualified people have really stepped up. Really says something about the community, the school system that supports the community, and the school committee, that so many people would want to step up and do what is really a thankless but necessary job. And the job is going to require a lot of work. We have a lot of challenges ahead of us, and whoever gets in is going to have to really dig in and learn very, very quickly. This was, for me, coming up with who my preference was a very difficult decision, and I'm sure it was the same for all of you. Would you like to?
Thank you. No, only to say just a tremendous thank you to the people who applied and spent so much time thinking about applying, pulling together their applications, spending time with us to answer questions. And I really do want to emphasize that in many elections in this town, or many committees like this, I mean, the Override Study Committee comes to mind, people who are on these committees or who put their name forward, whether or not they're chosen that one time, really do find ways to serve productively and importantly in the town. There are so many things that we need to be focusing on to advance education for children in terms of not only building committees, which get a lot of airtime, and overrides, which get a lot of airtime, but just for those of you who are parents in PTOs, for those of you who are in running for town meeting or as part of other interest groups. So please do stay involved, and if you don't have a way to get involved and want a way to get involved, ask anyone up here. I'm sure we'd be more than happy to think of a few opportunities. So anyway, thank you, and please to the 12 who don't get elected, please do find ways to get involved. Oh, look, Michael's here now. How nice.
Okay.
Can I
Yes.
just say,
Sure.
yeah, it was truly an outstanding group of applicants, and it was, literally, there are 4 that I would like to vote for. And I'm sorry to those of you I'm not going to vote for, but I think Susan had it right. There are other ways to get involved in town, and it's really, really important for the voice of people who are interested and connected with our schools to be in town meeting and to be elsewhere on committees and things. So I wholeheartedly concur that you should, get involved. And there'll be maybe future opportunities on our board or the school committee to run.
Well, we know there might be at least one open seat on our board.
There well might be.
Hint, hint. Okay, so the rules for voting, it's going to take a majority of both boards together. So we're meeting as a joint convention. So there are, 12 of us? 13 of us.
13 total, and with Lisa, it's 12.
Okay, so the first person to get 7 votes is in, and I'll be calling the roll in alphabetical order of the combined boards, and maybe this time I'll get the alphabetical order right. So when I call your name, and then if on the first round no one gets a majority, we'll have a runoff of the top vote getters. Okay? So, the candidates are Joshua Abrams, Amy Clark, Daniel DeBowie, David Driscoll, Suzanne Federspiel, Craig Haller, Paul Harris, Jacob Jaffe, Scott Lippman, Hadassah Margolis, James Marshall, Elena Olson, and Julie Schreiner-Oldham. So when I call your name, please state your preference. Ben Chang,
Abrams.
Helen Cholepsky,
Julie Schreiner Oldham.
Nancy Daly,
Julie Schreiner Oldham.
Ben Franco,
Julie Schreiner Oldham.
Mike Glover,
Julie Schreiner Oldham.
Bernard Green,
Elena Olson.
Nancy Heller,
Julie Schreiner Oldham.
Beth Jackson Stram,
Elena Olson.
David Pollock,
Julie Schreiner Oldham.
Barbara Scotto,
Suzanne Federspiel.
I'll vote for Julie Schreiner Oldham. Susan Wolf Ditkoff,
Julie Schreiner Oldham.
Julie Schreiner Oldham by my count is 8. Elena Olson has 2. And Suzanne Federspiel has 1. Josh Abrams, sorry. So it looks like Julie Schreiner Oldham is elected. Congratulations. And I believe that concludes the joint convention.
Yes, again, thank you to everyone. The selectmen are taking a break in meeting, and we are going to room 103 for anybody who is interested in the enrollment report for the school committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We'll be back at 6:45.
Yeah, we'll be back here at 6:45.
Take your name tag.
Selectmen's meeting for Tuesday, January 10th, and we're coming back from a break. We had a joint convention with the school committee to elect a new school committee member, and I'll officially congratulate Julie Schreiner Oldham, who was the winner of the joint convention. So she's got her work cut out for her. Okay, announcements. Selectmen Daily.
Oh, well, we had another public meeting last night on the ninth school at Baldwin, and we had quite a good representation from around town, as well as many close neighbors to the project. And, many in the immediate neighborhood continue to oppose it, but we heard from many people about how important this project was, too. So it was a very interesting meeting, and we had our building committee meeting this morning, and we had 5 choices. We're down to 3, although pretty much everybody had a pretty strong preference for one of those 5. And I liked it because I thought it was the least impactful for the immediate neighbors, but the superintendent also liked it for academic reasons. And so it was, I'm kind of guessing we're headed in that direction.
Okay.
So that was progress, and we'll keep working.
Okay, last night in this room, there were presentations made by developers for 2 projects, one at the site of the Holiday Inn for a mixed-use hotel, retail, and residential project. And then the other site is the site of the Waldo Durgan Garage at the corner of Pleasant and John Street in Coolidge Corner, where a 40B, a very large 40B, 21-story tower, has been proposed. And this is hopefully in lieu of the 40B, instead of the 40B, hopefully a much more palatable project, which is, again, a mixed-use hotel, residential, and retail. And we're going, later on in the agenda is the formation of a committee to work with the developers and determine whether the town, whether we're going to be making a recommendation to town meeting for those developments. So that will be coming. I think that committee is going to be kicking off on January 30th, and we'll be working through the winter and the spring, getting us to the November town meeting if the result is a recommendation to change zoning to make that possible. Anyone have anything else? Okay, so I believe we have someone signed up for public comment. Mr. Vitolo.
Tommy Vitolo, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 6. Good evening. I'd like to talk for just a minute or 2 about snow removal. As you all recall, between 10 and 5 years ago, Town Meeting was rather frustrated with snow removal in town, particularly on bike lanes and sidewalks. And in response to that, the town local government did a number of things. We had a committee, and we looked at which sidewalks were scheduled by the town to have snow removal. We voted to change the fine structure for property owners who weren't doing their end of the deal. And we even agreed to purchase new snow removal commitment. I believe that was led by Selectmen Daily, the thinking that if the DPW had better equipment, particularly for sidewalks, they could do a better job. And they've done an outstanding job this year. Andy Papasturgeon, I don't know what he's doing, but he's doing it right. The sidewalks are much better. The bicycle lanes are much better. The curb cuts are better. And, of course, the roadways are clear. And it's real improvement in the quality of life not just for folks who drive, but folks who don't drive and still need to get their kids to school and still need to get to the drugstore and still need to get to work. So hats off to Commissioner Papasturgeon, hats off to his staff and contractors who have done a really outstanding job this year. But I wouldn't miss the opportunity to suggest where we could improve. And I will do that now. Commissioner Papasturgeon has these devices that can clear sidewalks very efficiently, but only when there aren't cars parked on those sidewalks. And so we have a number of streets in town where property owners consistently park the back half of their vehicle on the sidewalk every single night. And some of those sidewalks happen to be the same sidewalks that Commissioner Papasturgeon's men clear with a little bobcat or a little mechanized tractor. But when they have to swerve onto the street to get around the cars that are parked on the sidewalk, they're not able to clear that sidewalk nearly as well. And I'll give you a specific example, and I'm sure you can find more. Washington Street on the south side between Gardner and Park is a specific example where there's about 5 houses. The cars every night park on the sidewalk. The Brookline Police Department drives by 100 times a day because the public safety building is on Washington Street. They don't get tickets. I know because I walk past those cars every single day. And now when Commissioner Papasturgeon's doing the best he can and doing an outstanding job clearing the sidewalks, he's not even able to clear those sidewalks because the cars are parked there. Now, when cars are parked on the roads during a snow emergency, we get rid of them. Cars aren't ever supposed to be parked on the sidewalks, and so I hope that this body can, as police commissioners, can have a chat with the police department and figure out a way to at least get the residents who insist on parking their cars on the sidewalk every other day to not park them on the sidewalks when Commissioner Papasturgeon's men are coming by, clearing the sidewalks in front of their house on their behalf. That would be a small improvement to what otherwise has been an absolutely remarkable set of activities on the Department of Public Works to get our sidewalks, our bike lanes, our crosswalks, and our roads clear of snow. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm going to just suggest there's a thing on Brook Online that you can make specific complaints.
Those complaints multiple times. They are simply deleted.
Oh, okay.
Can I make an announcement of sorts too?
Sure.
I didn't sign up because I didn't see a
Go
sign-up
ahead.
sheet, so my name's Kaya Vanderzeel. I live in precinct 15 now. Anyway, I'm here because at the last meeting last week, Bernard Green was talking about the MLK Day, and he neglected to mention something that I'm involved in, and is kind of one of those other things that's Frank Farlow's legacy. I mean, every time I turn around, I'm thinking, well, Frank worked on this. And that is that we're having, again, donation sites at 2 places. Maybe Bernard was going to bring it up later on, but
Don't rub it in.
Pardon me?
Don't rub it in.
No.
I apologize.
No, that's fine.
for
No
that.
problem. I should take responsibility for it myself. So, yes, we're collecting non-perishable food and personal care items at the arcade building from 11 to 2, and we're also collecting books, CDs, and DVDs. The food and that sort of thing goes to our own food pantry, which has a growing need, and the books, CDs, DVDs, and video games are going to More Than Words, which is a bookstore and cafe in 2 locations in Waltham and in Boston that hire and train at-risk youth, which is a big category of kids who are involved in the juvenile justice system, in foster care and a variety of other categories. Anyway, so 11 to 2 in both places. I think we may have enough volunteers to help us out there. If you want to volunteer, please get in touch with me. Chobi's running the book drive, and I'm running the food drive. But please bring donations to both sites if you have them. I just don't want people to throw things out or to put them in the trash.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. And
Yeah, let me just add that we really appreciate the work that you've done and others, both this year as well as last year when this service component of the MLK celebration began. Service was an important part of King's legacy, and it's totally appropriate that we include in our celebration, not just the obligatory speeches, et cetera, but actually something that is concretely representative of what he stood for. So we really appreciate the contribution of service projects to this year's as well as last year's event.
And of course, the event is coming up on Monday.
January 16, Monday, at beginning at 3 p.m. Tickets are free, but they are tickets, and you must reserve them online. You can get to our website through the town website, which has a link on the front page.
Okay, so I'm going to take the next item out of order, and Acting Chief Ward will tell us about some heroic actions.
Okay. You want to do that one first?
Yeah.
Thanks for having us here on Tuesday morning, November 8th, 2016, at 3:30 a.m. Box 154 was struck for a fire at 30 Cypress Street. On arrival, the responding companies were met with heavy fire in the rear of the building and reports of a person trapped on the 3rd floor. The following actions were taken. Both Ladder 1 and Ladder 2 immediately began search and rescue operations, as well as roof and ladder operations. Engine 1 advanced a hose line to the 3rd floor, Engine 5 advanced their hose line to the 2nd floor, and Engine 3 ran a hose line to the rear stairs. While all this was going on, Captain Kevin Francis and firefighter James Clinton made their way through extreme heat and heavy smoke to the 3rd floor and started searching the hallway. There they found a female resident who was nearly unconscious. With great effort and through zero visibility, Captain Francis and firefighter Clinton were able to get her back down the stairs and outside, where she was transported by ambulance to the hospital. I thought she was going to be here with us tonight, but I don't see her. I'm glad she had the opportunity to be invited here. While every firefighter on scene that night did a great job by not only extinguishing the fire, but also keeping it from spreading to nearby homes, I would especially like to recognize and commend Captain Kevin Francis and firefighter James Clinton for their heroic rescue under extreme conditions.
Wow.
Captain Francis and firefighter Clinton.
Yeah, sure.
You know where I take the
this is the kind of event I really love.
Yes.
And it's great that we have a fire department that we can count on, and when something like this happens, we almost expect you guys to do this, but we know we shouldn't just expect it. It's part of the job, and it's one that we really appreciate.
And I think we've seen time and time again that the Brookline firefighters go above and beyond,
Yeah.
even when it was rescuing people in Newton on the, over the line. But certainly in Brookline, we do have come to expect heroism and from our firefighters. So thank you very much. I know you guys put your life on the line too when you go in to rescue someone, but obviously it's a wonderful result. Thank you.
I'll echo the sentiments of my colleagues. It's a great result. Thank you so much for your hard work, not only in November at this fire, but every day that you're on tour working on our behalf to keep us safe. I will echo some comments I made back in November when we got sort of a report about this fire initially. I believe this is a case where there was only one means of egress out of the unit, and I want to reiterate the fact that that is not only a danger for occupants of those units where there's only a single means of egress, but also for our hardworking public safety personnel, our firefighters. And this very well could have been a very different story. So if you only have one means of egress in your apartment, please tell your landlord, please call the fire department and report it. It's truly a public safety danger and a hazard.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Thank you. I'll do
Chief
the,
shouldn't go.
Chief, we'll do the other one now, but
You want to do the Korean church one first?
excuse me?
Are we doing the Korean church?
Yes. Then we've got the Korean church.
Oh,
and
yeah,
the,
yeah, yeah.
Kyle
Okay.
Ward.
So which one is the
A.
A? Okay, yeah. So this is a question of accepting a donation in the amount of $400 from the Korean Church of Boston for the fire department. Chief?
Every year, for the last at least 10 years, the Korean church has made this donation to us, and I'm looking for the board to accept the $400.
Okay. Any?
Yeah, I'm very appreciative. Again, they contribute to the police department as well, and it's great when our nonprofits recognize the benefits they get from being in the town of Brookline.
Any other comments, question? I will move that we accept the donation in the amount of $400 from the Korean Church of Boston for the fire department. All those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. And we might as well do the next item, the last item for the fire department.
This is
Deb-
acting Chief of Operations Keith Flaherty.
Okay?
I just want to, Selectman Daley, you have a good memory. Captain Francis was awarded for the save in Newton back then, the same captain.
Really? Wow. This is a question of offering conditional employment to the applicant Kyle Ward for the position as a firefighter. Acting Deputy Chief Flaherty, welcome.
Thank you very much. I just bring this item before the board for your respectful consideration of the offer.
Okay, so this is done using the civil service procedures.
That's correct.
Okay. Any
Yeah, I think
questions?
he was in a group that already got, we went through the process, and he got activated to the National Guard, so he's lagging behind his group, but he had already been, we had more information about him the first time.
Right.
So we have already considered him.
And the expectation is that he's going to enter the academy in April, I believe. So
That's correct.
a
Yep.
relatively short window between our action
Okay. So I will move that we offer conditional employment to the applicant Kyle Ward for the position as a firefighter. All those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Okay, now we'll go back to the calendar in order. Then I won't be so confused. So the next item is a change order in the amount of $21.59.52 for electrical work being performed by Garcia, Galuska, and D'Souza related to the old Lincoln School Electrical Services upgrade project. Mr. Simmons, welcome.
Good evening. This is regarding the upgrade of the electric service at the old Lincoln School. We're painfully almost done, and one of the last things was a panel down in the basement that had been apparently rewired way before I was born, and we had to change the wiring, and that's a change order that was recommended by the engineer for the contractor to do so.
Well, before you were born.
Yeah, well,
Was it as old as the one that we found in the high school when we renovated the high school 20 years ago?
something like
Probably
that.
same vintage, right?
Yeah.
When electricity was invented.
Right.
Yeah.
Had the name Thomas Edison on it?
No, but very old wires. Very, very old wires.
Well, I'm going to support this because although I appreciate the work of the fire department, I don't want to give them extra work.
Any other questions or comments? I'll move that we approve the change order in the amount of $2,159.52 for electrical work being performed by Garcia, Galuska, and D'Souza related to the old Lincoln School Electrical Services upgrade project. All those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
That's for the contractor, MV Electric. It should be.
Oh.
So performed by MV Electric.
Sorry about that. It's a change order. We're up to number 3 on the original
Right.
contract.
Right. So you got that, Kate? Now I'll call for the vote. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Next item is Commissioner Pap Sturgeon, question of approving and executing a contract with Waste Zero in the amount of $42,000 for the bags for pay-as-you-throw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I get tell you, I get pretty nervous when Tommy Vitolo's up here patting me on the back, but I'll take it whenever I can get it. I have 2 contracts before you tonight, which is a result of your vote of last week on the hybrid pay-as-you-throw program. The first contract is with Waste Zero, contract PW 17-09. This is a contract for the manufacture, marketing, and distribution of the plastic overflow bags. These bags will be custom imprinted, kind of a unique color, and will be marketed and available at a list of local retail establishments that we are in the process of developing as we speak. The bags will come in rolls of 5 bags. They will retail for $15 per roll, and the amount of this contract of $42,000 is for us to purchase the initial order of 700 cases of bags, which is the inventory that will be kept by Waste Zero. They do all of the work on this. They arrange with the retailers. They manage their inventory. They notify us when the inventory is low, and we purchase additional bags to be put into inventory. They deal with the retailers in terms of restocking their shelves, and what we get in return is a check from them every month deposited back into our account for the sale of the bags from the retailers. And we will be setting up a separate bank account to receive those funds. So that contract is for $42,000. It has a 5-year term with an option to renew at the end of the 5-year term or to renegotiate the prices. So as I said to you earlier, we're hoping that, we're hoping not to sell a lot of bags, to be honest with you. This will provide us with what we think is the minimum order to get out there for folks to have. But in reality, we're hoping that we don't sell a lot of these bags, that we're not in this business to make money on the bags. We're in this business to reduce the amount of our waste. So that's the first contract.
Okay. Any questions on the first contract? Ms. Breeze?
I have one
Yeah.
question. So what is the, I'm sure that the merchants are getting some amount of money for being willing to sell these bags, correct?
Actually, no. The merchants don't get any money. What they do get is increased foot traffic, and that's always been part of the deal. So they say it works. I'm not a marketing expert. I don't know.
That's great.
And also, there's no sales tax on the bags as well.
Okay.
I do want you to know that I got the note from DPW this week when the refuse bills went out, saying that, hybrid pay-as-you-throw was coming, and here's how you can sign up, so I did it.
Oh, good.
I signed up for my 35-gallon cart.
Perfect.
So
Perfect.
I encourage everybody else to do that.
This is only the second day of the selection period, and we've already had close to 200 folks pick their card already, so we're off and running.
Wow. Okay. Any other questions on this contract? So I'll move that we approve and execute a contract with Waste Zero, Inc. in the amount of $42,000 for the initial first-order funding for the manufacture, inventory, marketing, and distribution of custom imprinted overflow bags for the hybrid pay-as-you-throw waste collection system. All those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. The next contract is with Simple Recycling Massachusetts for free curbside collection of used clothing and home goods. So this is the contract you were telling us about last time.
Yes, this one I'm particularly excited about. This is a win-win situation for us. It's been rolled out in other communities across the country, not so much in the Northeast yet, but there are a few that are using it. Simple Recycling is a Massachusetts corporation that will pick up curbside used clothing and home goods. We refer to that as soft recyclables. Some of these items include clothing, textiles, shoes, hats, pillows, curtains, draperies. They will also collect small appliances and household electronics. What happens is they will provide, free of charge, a special bag that's also custom imprinted, different color from our bag, that you can use to fill with these soft recyclables. You can put it curbside every week, and it will, along with your on your regular trash collection day, put it out next to your recycling cart and your waste cart, and a special truck, not our truck, private truck will come by, clearly labeled, and they will pick that up curbside. Once they do that, they will leave you a new bag, free of charge. They will leave it in your door or wherever they can leave it for you to use the next time you have something that you want to get rid of that's soft recyclable. The benefit for us is twofold. Number one, we're able to take some of these materials that right now are generally ending up in the waste stream. About 5% of our waste stream is made up of these soft recyclables. EPA estimates about 70 to 80 pounds per person per year is discarded in the waste stream of products that have perhaps reached the end of the useful life at that point, but nonetheless recyclable and can be used for other purposes. This will tend to reduce the amount of tonnage in our waste stream that goes in the waste stream, increase our recyclables. It'll count as recyclable tonnage. But also, more importantly, it doesn't cost us a nickel. We don't get involved with the collection. We don't get involved with the bags. We don't get involved with anything other than endorsing and signing a contract with these people. But in addition to that, we receive $20 per ton in revenue for every ton that they collect, and that'll be also returned to us monthly. If you recall, it costs us $74 a ton right now to dispose of our solid waste. So we not only remove that tonnage and don't have to pay the $74, but we're getting $20 in return. So it's a real good deal for us, one that I think will be well received by the town.
Now, you had mentioned last week that they'll take books. I don't see that here.
Yeah, I don't see it either.
Well, you can put books in your regular recycling.
Oh, really?
I believe so, sure.
Or paper,
Paper,
Yeah, okay.
cardboard.
paper and cardboard, so there's no reason why you can't do that. But it may, even though it's not listed here,
But their donations, I see Ms.
yeah,
Dr.
there might be other
Vanderzeel.
things you want to do with your books. But even though it's not listed here, it doesn't mean that they won't take it. There's a lot of products that they will take.
Where could somebody get, if they go to their simplerecycling.com, can they get a more complete list of what's okay to put in there and what's not?
I think we can provide that.
Okay.
If they call our office, we'll provide that.
Well, I want to say, I always try to be a really good recycler, but, when I've had the sweater that had moth holes in it or something that's ripped or something, those things I was throwing out because I didn't think anyone else could use them.
There is a
And the
market.
interesting thing about this program is they have methods to reclaim the materials
Yes.
in those products, even if they're not wearable anymore, and can be used for other things. So, it says somewhere in here, you can even put in a single shoe.
That's right.
So those kind of things that I was throwing out before because I thought, well, nobody can use them.
Just a quick number, 45% of those are reused and repurposed. Some is even exported as secondhand clothing. 30% is recycled or converted to reclaimed wiping rags or other types of industrial uses, residential absorbents, and 20% is recycled into fiber and then reused for the manufacture of new products. So it doesn't have to go in the waste stream, and this is a good way to deal with it.
Selectman Heller.
I have a couple of questions. One is, I think it's state law, and maybe you can educate us about this. You can't throw out mattresses in this way. You can't.
Correct.
They would not be able to collect your mattresses. Is that
That's
correct?
Yes.
So does that apply to other bedding, or you mentioned pillows in here?
You can throw out curtains, pillows, any kinds of those textiles,
Just not mattresses?
just not mattresses.
Okay,
No.
so the mattresses.
Basically, they'll collect anything that can be picked up by one person. Mattress doesn't fit the bill
But
on that.
doesn't a mattress come under a special category of not being able to be resold?
There's some conditions on mattresses, yes.
They can be broken down into wood, the fabrics,
Metal.
springs, other things.
There's metal in them as well.
The other question I had is, initially, where will people get these bags?
The bags will be distributed probably when we first start this program. Bags will be distributed to every home that's currently on town collection. And then from that point forward, the bags will be reissued as they're collected.
Great, thank you.
How's this going to be marketed? How are the residents going to know about it?
We will be sending out informational brochures as well as Simple Recycling. Will also be doing the marketing and sending out notifications to we're going to provide them with our customer list, and they will be sending material out. We are hoping to get this program started on April 1st. We really want to get this up and running a few months before we start our cart program.
Okay.
I assume people will still give their really good junk to Goodwill.
Right, they can still do that. Okay, so I will move that we approve and execute the agreement with Simple Recycling Massachusetts for free curbside collection of used clothing, and home goods, soft recyclables. Excuse me. All those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye.
I thank you, and that
Thank you.
will probably be the last time you hear from me on solid waste for a few months anyway.
Okay. We have a temporary alcohol permit. This is to the Lars Anderson Auto Museum, and I reviewed the application. Actually, there are two. Lars Anderson Auto Museum, and then there's a wine and malt for Friends of Brookline Public Health for Dr. Balsam at the teen center. So I will move them in omnibus fashion. I'll move that we grant a permit to serve alcoholic beverages, sales, wine, and beer only to Lars Anderson Auto Museum for an annual museum members party on Saturday, January 28th, 2017, from 5:30 to 11 p.m. at 15 Newton Street. I'll also move that we grant a temporary wine and malt alcoholic beverage sales license to Friends of Brookline Public Health for retirement celebration to be held on Wednesday, January 25th, 2017, from 6 to 8 at the Brookline Teen Center. All those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. And
We
we,
should say that the last one is for our own Dr. Alan Balsam. and
right,
People who want to say goodbye should, I think there's some way to get on the list. I'm not sure exactly how you do it, but
yeah.
I know they're,
List of what?
they were taking advance, you were supposed to sign up in advance if you were coming to the
Right.
party. And it's,
I
the
should
Friends
sign up.
of Brookline Public Health are managing this, so I assume that's who you go to for information.
A late addition to the calendar is a question of authorizing the chair to sign a letter of support for the Brookline Arts Center in regards to a grant application. Mr. Faison.
Good evening, Austin Faison, Assistant Town Administrator. The Brookline Arts Council has requested a letter of support for their grant application. It is a grant application to the Massachusetts Cultural Council, and what the application and what the money would do is do some work on the cultural arts building, and they would like to work on the roof, repair and restore 5 windows on the first floor, restore the historic large fire truck doors on the front facade, add an ADA compliant bathroom, and add storage and art sinks to the main floor classroom studio space. So the building department, Charlie Simmons has written a letter of support. Preservation is also going to be putting together a letter of support. It's not ready right now because they're actually meeting about it tonight, but the BCA was looking for a letter of support that the chairman would be signing off on.
Mm-hmm. And this is going to be things like painting, boiler and electrical upgrades, roofing, gutter replacements, things that have to be done. And it would be great if we can get some support from the Mass Cultural Council. Any questions, comments? So I'll move that we authorize the chair to sign a letter of support for the Brookline Arts Center in regards to a grant application. All those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Thank you very much.
And the last item is a question of appointing Ken Kaplan as Building Commission alternate to the Building Committee for the 9th Elementary School at Baldwin. I understand the Building Commission representative is away for the months of January and February, and Mr. Kaplan has agreed to step up and fill in for Janet Fearman while she's away, and this makes it official. So any discussion of this item? Therefore, I'll move that we appoint Ken Kaplan as Building Commission alternate to the Building Committee for the 9th Elementary School at Baldwin. All those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. We have a few items on our main calendar before the public hearing on the 40B on Babcock Street. So we've already dealt with items 6 and 7, which relate to the fire department. The next item is the question of approving the charge of the committee and appointing members to the Senior Tax Exemption Study Committee. Selectman Franco.
So this is a committee that was the subject of a warrant article in the most recent town meeting, a article sponsored by town meeting member Susan Granoff. So this charge was in your packets last week. It's been reviewed and I think endorsed, signed off on by our Chief Assessor, Gary McCabe. On the back of the sheet of paper is a proposed slate for membership. This is a number of people who have some practical experience. It includes somebody who actually is a participant in one of the tax work-off programs. Of course, town meeting member Granoff as the sort of advocate for this committee being formed, along with myself as chair, representative from the advisory committee, and the Board of Assessors.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, I will move that we approve the charge of the committee and the slate of membership on item 8, listed on item 8, which includes Ben Franco, Frank Caro, Harold Peterson, Jeff Kushner, Neil Gordon, Sandy Spector, and Susan Granoff. All those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. The next item is the question of approving the charge and a slate of membership for the proposed Coolidge Corner Study Committee. And I talked about it during the announcements, and last night we had a presentation by the two developers, one for the current Holiday Inn site at 1200 Beacon Street for a mixed-use hotel and residence and retail project. And then there's an additional project at the corner of Pleasant and John Street, the so-called Waldo Durgan Garage. And there's a proposal there for a 40B, but the developer has agreed to work with us on an alternative proposal, which would again be mixed-use hotel, residence, retail. This committee is going to be working a lot like the River Road Study Committee, the Emerald Island Study Committee that just successfully completed, made a proposal to town meeting to rezone the industrial island on Brookline Avenue. And now the plans for that hotel are moving forward, and the hotel is going through the permitting process, so we should be seeing activity over there in the foreseeable future. So this committee is going to have the charge to do a similar kind of process as happened at River Road, to work with the developer, and they'll be looking at both projects, so the committee will be probably working in subcommittees, and it's a large committee. We have 19 names, and we have so many because it's two projects, and we want to make sure that all the constituencies are represented. So the folks who are on the slate have a variety of skill sets and represent various constituencies. We have architects, development professionals, planners, attorneys, real estate, finance professionals, and then we have town meeting members from each of the affected precincts, and then we also have affordable housing advocates. So I think we've kind of have all the bases covered, at least I hope we do. And the folks that we're proposing are Alan Christ, member of EDEB and a town meeting member. He's Precinct 4. Amy Anthony, who's a neighbor, who also happens to be a planner. Ann Myers from EDEB. Catherine Donaher, who's a neighbor and also happens to be a planner. Derek Choi from EDEB, who happens to be an architect. Frank Caro, who's a neighbor and also a town meeting member from Precinct 10. Jonathan Cutler, who's a town meeting member from Precinct 1, who's also an architect. Kathy Murphy, who's a neighbor and is also an attorney. Ken Lewis, who's on EDAB and a town meeting member, who's a real estate finance expert. Lauren Bernard, who's a neighbor and also a town meeting member. Linda Hamlin from the planning board. Linda Olson-Pelkey, who's a neighbor and also a town meeting member. Maura Toomey, who's a neighbor and a town meeting member. I'll be chairing the committee. Peter Kleiner, who's on the Preservation Commission, so we have a preservation architect. Roger Blood from the Housing Advisory Committee and a town meeting member. Sergio Modigliani, who's a neighbor and a former planning board and architect. Steve Keynes, an advisory committee member and an attorney. And Susan Roberts, who's an attorney who also a neighbor, attorney, and a town meeting member from Precinct 2. It's a big committee. We're going to have to manage our time very carefully. Big committees are always challenging, but I think we can meet the challenge. Any comments, questions?
I'm excited to see the committee get underway and take a look at these projects.
Yeah, the goal is to, if we're going to be making a recommendation to town meeting, it would be for the November 2017 town meeting. So it's not for this coming May town meeting. So, and even though it's November, it's still a tight schedule.
Ambitious.
Yeah, it's ambitious.
And I assume that the work of the membership of this committee is going to be supplemented by some professional resources, both
Right.
internally in the town, and then
Right.
I assume, I think I heard you say last night that a real estate finance consultant was going to be hired as well.
Right, yeah, Pam McKinney will be helping us. She's helped us with the River Road and Red Cab, Brookline Place. I worked with her on Brookline Place. She's good to work with, very knowledgeable. Okay, so what I will do is I will move that we approve the charge of the committee and a slate of membership. Just be sure, Kate, that the slate includes Susan Roberts. And the slate of membership is in our handout on the last page for the item 9. All those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. The next item is another charge to a committee, and it's a charge to the Kent Station Street Parking Lot Affordable Age-Restricted Housing Committee. That's a mouthful. Selectman Daley.
Yeah, this is, as you remember, there was a warrant article at the last town meeting about this proposal, and this is the charge to the committee. We're still finalizing a couple members who are going to be on there, although I did notice that 3 of your members are also on my list, so I hope they have time to do multiple committees. I think one of them was also on Ben's list, so anyway. We're going to try to get the information together and learn about the legal issues on air rights development and recommend the criteria and, work toward getting some neighborhood buy-in and getting to an RFP stage.
So why don't we vote the charge and the slate next week? Or
Okay, well, let's go ahead and vote the charge, because that's ready.
Okay.
And I'll bring you the slate.
So I have some Scribner's errors, which
Okay.
I'll just give to Kate. I don't think, it doesn't change the substance of the charge at
Okay.
all.
Okay.
I want that to be on the record. It's a
So I'll move the charge as appears in our packet,
Well, as amended by.
as amended by Selectman Franco. All those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Next item is a charge to the Diversity, Inclusion, and Community Relations Commission relative to police department policies on immigration detainment orders. And if you recall, we had a discussion last week on this topic, and I think it was the sense of the board that the surrounding communities had more explicit policies on ICE detainment orders than we do, and there was the sense of the board that someone should be looking at it and studying the issue and making a recommendation to us, and we thought that a good group to help us with this task is the Diversity, Inclusion, and Community Relations Commission. One change I will suggest to the charge that you see before you, it has a deadline in here, February 27th. That's really unworkable. A more reasonable deadline is probably March, the end of March. So what do we want to say? March
31st.
March 31, and even that's ambitious, but we'll give it a try. We're hoping that the DICR Commission can lead this discussion, perhaps break up into a subcommittee, and then as a committee, as a commission, make a recommendation to us that hopefully we can adopt. So,
I have one change I'd like to suggest.
Mhm.
I was talking to Kaya Vanderzeel earlier, and there are some people in town that are very interested in this topic, and I think that it might be appropriate for to say the board is asking that the commission, comma, its staff, comma, and any town residents that they ask to help, or something like that. I think that they may want to add some people, get some help from some
Staff
people in town that want to work on
and
this.
other residents,
Yeah.
other interested residents.
Okay.
I mean, this is a way more complex issue than I think a lot of people appreciate, so
Yeah.
getting some expertise, from the outside
Right.
is essential.
So,
I also would, I would like them to work with the police chief, and can we say that in there somewhere? Because I think that, they need to be working on something that's actually going to be able to be implemented.
the commission is so how about this? The board is asking that the commission, its staff, and other interested residents review the above materials, engage in other relevant research, review the above materials, comma, work with the police chief or designee or his designee, comma, engage in other relevant research,
Okay.
gather input, blah, blah.
All right?
Actually, it's probably better if it's staff and other interested residents in conjunction, in work with the police chief to review the above materials, engage in relevant research. So it's after other interested residents, work with the police chief or designee to review the above materials.
Let me just point out that the numbering on the list of information on the packet is
Yeah.
off, so there should be 5 items and not 4. There are 2 3s.
Right.
And this is a nitpicky change, but in the second line of that last paragraph, I would propose to change the word prepare to deliver. We want them not just to prepare it, we want them to give it to us.
Okay, so the changes are the numbering, instead of the second 3 and 4 becomes 4 and 5, and then the last paragraph is the board is asking that the commission, its staff, and other interested residents work with the police chief and or his designee to review the above materials, engage in other relevant research, gather input from stakeholders and other interested parties, and deliver findings and recommendations to the Board of Selectmen. Please be prepared to make a preliminary report no later than March 31. Okay. We just did something dangerous, crafted language as a committee on the fly. But I think this is okay.
Well, we're living on the wild side tonight.
Okay, so I'll move the charge as amended. All those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Okay, and the last charge we're looking at is the Tobacco Control Committee. And it's actually not a charge, we're
Yeah,
just
we're
adding another
one
member.
I had somebody come to the last meeting, and he was interested, and
Well.
I'm happy to have him.
Okay, then I'm happy to appoint him.
His name is Michael Chu. He's a lecturer in genetics and director of the Human Subjects Research for the Personal Genome Project at Harvard Medical School.
Okay, sounds qualified.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll move that we appoint Michael Chu to the Tobacco Control Committee. All those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Okay, and that's the last item before the public hearing, which is noticed for 8 o'clock, so I think we'll take a 10-minute break. Yeah, that's fine. Don't worry. Okay, I'm going to start the public hearing, and Selectman Green will be out here in a minute. Just some introductory remarks. Chapter 40B is a state law that allows a developer to make a proposal to the town for a project which does not conform to our local zoning if the project has built in certain levels of affordable housing. And right now, as I'm sure many of you know, Brookline has quite a few of these applications. In fact, there are currently 6 active 40B, or there are 6 40B applications pending at our Zoning Board of Appeals, which total 497 units. In addition, there are 4 additional projects, this being one of them, that are applying for project eligibility letters with the appropriate state subsidizing agency. And that's a condition of the process. So first, the applicant applies for a project eligibility letter to a state subsidizing agency, and assuming they get the project eligibility letter, they can then apply to the town for a comprehensive permit. So this project at 134 to 138 Babcock Street is in the process of applying for a project eligibility letter. And when a project eligibility letter is applied for, the subsidizing agency asks the town for comments on the application. And we've established a practice with this wave of 40B applications of holding a public hearing to hear from neighbors and other interested residents what they think of the project, so we can incorporate your thoughts into our thinking and convey those to the state subsidizing agency, which in this case is an agency called Mass Housing. Because of the large number of 40B projects, we have applied to the state, to the Mass Department of Housing and Community Development, for some administrative relief to help us and our besieged Zoning Board of Appeals and Planning Department to relieve the load. And the State Department of Housing and Community Development has granted some limited relief that is going to affect this project. And specifically, assuming the project gets a project eligibility letter, we will not have to open a public hearing until the later of April 1st, or we get our queue of projects being handled by the ZBA down to 4. So currently there are 6, and it's probably going to be a little while before it gets down to 4. So this project is going to be in line for a while before it gets to the ZBA, assuming they get a project eligibility letter. So under 40B, it's different than the normal zoning bylaw where there could be broad grounds to deny a project. Under 40B, there are some very specific grounds where a project can be denied, and it's constructed in such a way to make it very difficult to deny a project. So a project can be denied when certain local concerns exceed the regional concern for affordable housing. And that's very, 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 very narrowly constructed and generally pertains to things like public safety. Things that can't be considered are things like effects on the schools. So I would just say to you that you'll have an opportunity to comment on the site, but if your comments are concern about the impact of this project on the public schools of Brookline, that's not a concern that we can raise, that the state or any of the appellate avenues would allow. So, frankly, that's probably a waste of breath. This is our 9th one of these hearings. I guess we're getting quite used to them. Now, this project is a project at 134 to 138 Babcock Street. It's for 62 units, of which 46 will be market and 16 will be affordable. I'm going to ask the development team to make a presentation to us and the community. And then I'll be opening the floor up. After the presentation, the board will have an opportunity to ask questions, and then I'll open the floor up for comments. How many people are interested in making comments, just by a show of hands? So probably I see about 15. We have a sign-up sheet in the front. What we've done in the past, I've just asked people to line up, but I think that's kind of rude to ask you to line up. So it's probably a little smoother if you just sign up, and we'll call people in order. A number of people signed up in advance, so I'm going to take them first. We're not going to go at first. We're not going to go strictly in order that you see on the sign-up sheet. I'll be taking the people who've signed up first, and then we'll hit the sign-up sheet. And just one word of advice: if somebody has already made the point that you're making, you're free to make that point, but I would strongly suggest that it would be a better use of your time if you just say, I agree with so-and-so, and then make another point, because everyone making the same point gets very, very repetitious. And because so many people would like to speak, let's try and keep the comments to about 3 minutes. Is that fair? That's what we've done in the past, and that seems to have worked. So, Mr. Engler, you're back. And then before you
for
start,
the record, Jeff Engler from
before you
SCB.
start,
Sure.
let me make one other statement. Please also limit your comments to the project. And there have been instances in the past where there have been disparaging remarks about the development team. That's just not called for. We're here to comment on the project. We're not commenting on personalities or the clothes people are wearing or whatever. Okay? Thank you, Mr. Engel. Go.
If people want to be critical of the clothes I'm wearing, that would be nice compared to what I'm used to. So, no, in all seriousness, for the record, Jeff Engler from SCB LLC. We're consultants to the applicant, in this case, Babcock Place LLC. Normally, I get up and kind of talk a little bit about the 40B process, but you and the town is obviously well-versed and waist-deep in various applications at various stages, so I'll keep my remarks very brief. We look forward to getting the comments from the municipality, working with the planning department, as we and of our other clients we would like to think successfully have done, to modify various projects that have been proposed. one comment that you didn't make that I think is important to to make mostly for the neighbors that are maybe unfamiliar with this process is it's very infrequent that the project and the plans after the public hearing process look just like they did tonight, or just like they did at the beginning of the site approval application. There's lots of peer review, there's lots of meetings. Brookline has the benefit of a lot of excellent professionals, both internally and externally. They have a robust team of peer review consultants, and it's an iterative process relative to looking at civil engineering, architecture, parking, traffic, all of those key considerations. So we look forward to it. Tonight is obviously a step in the process. We look forward to presenting our plans, but we certainly expect there to be concerns and critique. We take that seriously. My client owns and manages a lot of property in Brookline, so this is not an out-of-town or out-of-state person. I know, I can say, care intimately about being a good neighbor, so to speak. With that said, as you all know, sometimes there's differences of opinion relative to design and otherwise, but we look forward to that dialogue. So with that said, I'm here to, later on, happy to answer any 40B administrative, procedural related questions. I'll turn it over to Sam Slater, my client, and later Peter Bartash from Cube 3 to really walk through the presentation, which is what I would anticipate most people are interested in this evening. So thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Just wanted to very briefly say...
Can you identify yourself?
Sure. Sam Slater,
Okay.
the applicant for Babcock Place. I just wanted to thank the board for having us here tonight. Thank all of you for coming out as well. Understand that yes, there are a lot of 40Bs, but would just like to say that we've owned and operated property, myself, my family, for several generations in Brookline, and we are looking forward to this process for this project, and are especially looking forward to addressing a lot of the comments, questions, concerns for this project. So thank you in advance.
Good evening. I'm Peter Bartash with Cube 3 Studio. We're the architect for the project. And what we're going to do is walk briefly through a look at the context, the site location, our preliminary plans, elevations, perspectives, sections, just kind of get familiar with the project. Really kind of stay high level. We can get to any detail that the board might want.
Don't spend much time on the inside.
Nope, all on the outside. So this is just a quick outline of what we're going to be talking about tonight and diving right into the site. So in yellow in the center of the map is actually the location of the project site at 134 Babcock Street. It sits almost directly at the end of Freeman Street, where Freeman Street intersects Babcock Street. And to the rear, you'll notice, and we'll talk about this later on, we have a downward slope that slopes toward the street at the very back of it, Stedman Street. And we also have Winchester Road up to the north of the site. For the purposes of the way the plans are oriented in the presentation, we have north always at the upper portion of the page. We'll be referring to that in multiple points throughout the conversation here. And immediately to the south of the project, we do have an existing 3.5-story building that is also owned by the Slaters, which does sit against the very southern property boundary of 134 Babcock Street. So getting in a little closer now, we can see Stedman Street behind the property, and we can see some of the existing single-family homes that sit along Stedman Street. We have the existing multifamily to the south of the property site here. The current site is occupied by an existing multifamily building that sits roughly in the center, as well as an auxiliary structure that also serves as a storage and kind of shed in the back of the property here. You can see we have some other single-family residential homes further up Babcock Street, and then some additional multifamily across the street sitting on Feldman as well, or Freeman as well. We're looking here just quickly at a survey, which we can talk about in detail, I think, at any point, but the bulk of the importance about the way the property exists today is its topography. There have been a lot of questions about the topography. Mass Housing asked us for some additional information. How this building is going to sit on the site is very important. And so if you were to run from the right-hand side through the site to the left, what actually happens is the property does slope gradually upward by roughly 6.5 to 7 feet to a high point near the very back of the site, and then it slopes fairly steeply back toward the properties that sit to the rear of the site. There's also a relatively significant, by that I mean about 2 or 3 feet or so, roll-off at the northeastern edge of the property along the side that faces the abutter on Babcock Street. And so what we're really proposing to do is to take the building and sink it into the existing landscape here so that it is roughly at the elevation, the ground floor is roughly at the elevation of Babcock Street, and it will be recessed or buried at the back side. And so we have some sections that we'll talk about how that works and why that's important, but the reason being that will have some specific impacts on view lines from properties that sit along the street to the rear, and also we'll have some impacts on the perceived height of the building too, because we are trying to take advantage of the natural topography here. So the dashed white lines you see that are indicated as A and B, cutting through Stedman Street, stretching through the site back to Babcock Street, and then cutting longitudinally across the site itself, those are the section lines that we're going to be taking a look at in a second. And that's how we're going to really just talk about the way the topography transitions from the property to its surroundings. And we also have, you can see in these bubbles here, just a quick map of relative heights of existing structures that surround the property. So you have a mixture of 2.5, 3.5, and 4-story buildings that all sit kind of in and around the property itself. And on the upper right-hand side, we've included a little bit of a key that talks about what that relative height differential is. And so from kind of the 2.5-story buildings, if you were measuring from average grade to about upper midpoint of the roof, because some of these are taller buildings, you have roughly 34 feet you're looking at as an average height that would be considered for those 2.5-story buildings, all the way up to about 45 feet, which is the height that you would find with some of these existing multifamily buildings that sit a little bit further down Babcock Street and also a little further down Stedman, kind of kitty corner to the site itself. So these are the sections I was describing. And on the upper section, Babcock Street does sit at the right-hand side of the screen, and we are transversing back through the site to the high point at the rear of the site and then sloping down towards Stedman. So this outline you see here is an existing single-family house that does sit on Stedman and its rear yard behind the property. And then this section B, this is as if we're standing in Babcock Street looking at the property and cutting through the existing multifamily to the south of the proposed project and the existing single-family home to the north of the project. So as I had kind of described, and it's a little tough to see the color here, you can see this colored line that extends up. That's the line of the existing grade today. And this flat line here represents the proposed location of the parking level for the garage that sits beneath the building. The overall structure that we are proposing is 5 total stories. It's 4 stories of residential over 1 floor of parking. And as you can see, that floor of parking sits slightly above the elevation of Babcock Street, but is sunken down into the hill at the backside. So the net effect of all of these moves in the topography is that, if the site were purely flat, this building wouldn't feel as tall to some of the neighbors on Stedman Street. So we're attempting to push the building down as far as we possibly can to help limit the appearance of the height from down on Stedman Street. And it's also important to note, as much as it might seem like these are just placed in here for convenience, this area is heavily vegetated. There are a lot of mature trees along the boundary between the properties that sit on Stedman Street and also the property here on Babcock Place. There is an existing fence that sits along the rear edge of the parking lot on the site today, and that fence would be replaced with a new fence, and we would be proposing new screening and plantings, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but I don't want to ignore the net effects of some of the existing tree cover on those sight lines to kind of the upper floors of the building itself. And if we're looking at the section on the bottom of the screen, again, you can see we're really proposing an extra floor above the height of the existing building to the south of the project site. So the site context, this is just a quick series of photos that kind of take us along Babcock Street, down Stedman, and also on Winchester Road to just see what we're looking at in the immediate area. So this is the existing multifamily project that's to the south of the project site. So for the purposes of our kind of conversation, the project site is hidden by these trees right about where the cursor is circling on the right-hand side of the screen. And you can see that this is the 3.5-story building we were discussing, where there are some basement or garden level units and then your 3 units up above with a flat roof building, brick, sort of a traditional look. And you move a little bit further down Babcock and turn 180 degrees and you'll see an existing single-family home, pitched roof architecture, kind of classic Victorian style, New England home that you would expect to see in Brookline. It's set back from the street. It's heavily vegetated. Kind of this sort of tree canopy and this streetscape is really consistent all the way along the length of Babcock Street. It's a beautiful street. And so we'll keep going further on. So this you're looking at here is actually Babcock Place. And this would be, when we eventually see the first perspective of the project, it's almost as if you're standing in this exact same view. We haven't included all of the trees and all of the greening because it would obscure a lot of the project that we're trying to talk about. But for the purposes of understanding how what we're proposing marries up with what you have here now, roughly at the kind of edge of where this shadow line hits the car, that would be about the front corner of the proposed building in relation to the sidewalk. So that's just kind of a note for future discussion for everyone to keep in the back of their heads as we keep moving through. Here we see the existing single-family home to the north of the project site. And you'll start to see here how the grade does fall away as you get closer to where this home is. And you can see that they've also recessed, obviously, the basement level into the ground. You have that parking right off of Babcock Street. This strategy isn't dissimilar from what we're proposing at Babcock Place. This is the project that's right across the street from the home we were just looking at. Again, it's about 3.5 stories, existing multifamily, flat roof, brick, pretty standard. Moving further down Babcock Street, again, this is on the side of the street that shares Babcock Place. And so the home with the recessed garage that we were looking at is just off the left-hand side of the screen. So you can see kind of some similar pitched roof, Victorian-style architecture, lap siding, shingle roofs, dormers, front porches, columns. And this is actually across the street from the homes we were just looking at. This is, when you're standing on Winchester Road, the house on the left is at the corner of Winchester Road and Babcock Place. And it's a little difficult to see, but I think what's important for the purposes of our conversation about grades and about understanding building heights is in the very background of this image, kind of right in the center here, in between these two homes, you can kind of see a dark area that has this really difficult to see kind of line up here. And what that is it's a retaining wall with a fence at the top. This is the grade of Babcock Place. The site is up from its surroundings. So I just wanted to make the point that we are talking about a site that is slightly elevated from its context. And then this is actually dropping down on Stedman Street to some of the homes that sit behind the project site to the west of the property boundary. So what you see through the trees here is actually the existing multifamily building to the south of the project site. And again, we're talking about another floor on top of this building in terms of its overall height. So I just wanted to include this here so we could start to understand kind of how view corridors work and how things start to look and feel from the various vantage points around the site. And again, these are some of the homes that are further down Stedman Street sitting behind the project site. So the proposed design, this is where we're going to start to get going here. This is just talking about the nuts and bolts of the project, 62 total units as we had discussed. We're currently proposing 31 parking spaces, which would result in half a space per unit as a ratio. We do recognize the demand for parking, the need for parking, and are looking into various alternatives that would allow us to potentially boost our parking capacity. So we would anticipate coming to future hearings with the ZBA or coming back to the town with a slightly modified proposal that would help increase the amount of parking that would be provided on site. And we're looking at a total residential gross square footage of roughly 54,700 or so gross square feet, and a total project square footage of a little over 68,500 square feet. So this is the proposed design. As you can see, we have carried the building language all the way through the full 5 floors, even though this first floor, as we discussed, is parking at grade. And what you're looking at is really an attempt to start breaking down scale by creating a clear body that's about 3 stories in the center of the building that is tied in with the datum that we get from the roof line of the building next door. We're creating a recess all the way along the perimeter of the upper floor and pushing the upper floor back, changing the material, and you'll see that as we look at some of the other perspectives. And we're also changing the material at the base to help, again, kind of ground the building, but also start to create some articulation as you move from base to the middle to the top of the building. You're looking at a mixture of lap siding. This is a cementitious siding that looks and feels like wood. And a mix of also masonry as well. A lot of this dark material that you see here is a darker colored brick material. Modern, clean, contemporary. Obviously it doesn't attempt to pretend it's a Victorian home or that it was built in 1910 by master craftsmen who had just arrived and were building in the country. We're thinking a little bit more along the lines of some of the existing multifamily that sits both immediately adjacent to the project, but also directly across the street. That is a little bit more kind of streamlined. It has flat roof style architecture, and it's a little more conducive to a building of this scale. So here we're further down Babcock Street. We're looking back across the home next door, and you can see obviously that we do have, again, that kind of division that carries its way all the way around the building. We're looking at punched window openings. These are kind of your standard 3-foot by 6-foot windows. And we're really intentionally trying to keep this regular and consistent to try to keep the facade as simple as possible. Not because we're trying to do something simple with the design that is driven by cost, but because we actually are trying to achieve a very simple and clean aesthetic. We're choosing darker colors here on this project because typically in real life, on paper it looks dark and it looks heavy and it looks kind of ominous, but in real life, the darker colors actually tend to recede into the landscape and kind of blend in with the darkness of the shadows that you see on trees and within trees. And so, as much as it seems like it stands out in the middle of this image, there's a specific reason behind choosing the colors that we've chosen for the building. And here we would be standing down on Stedman Street looking back and through. It is important to note, and we are completely and fully aware that these initial images are very, very early, and we built this model and started developing these images at a time before we had engaged a civil engineer, before we had started to coordinate with grading and talk about the siting of the project. So what you're not seeing here is the relationship between the grades along Stedman and up toward Babcock Place. However, that being said, the finished floor elevation of the garage, as it's depicted here, is almost exactly the same as it would be once the grades are built up and around the base. So what really ends up happening is you have grading and fencing that kind of end up getting dumped along the back side of the garage that kind of cover that lower piece that you can currently see in the image. And you have some fencing as well that help, soften kind of the transition from the property back down toward the properties along Stedman. So looking at the building plans just very quickly, we have a couple existing curb cuts along Babcock Street, and we're proposing to maintain those curb cuts. That existing curb cut here would be shifted slightly to the north and would provide the main vehicular access into the project. We've set the building back a little over 9 feet from the frontmost property line, and that front property line does run along the back side of the sidewalk. There's a little bit of a planted buffer along that edge as well, so you're somewhere between 12 and 14 feet from the edge of Babcock Street itself to the face of the building, which allows us to kind of maintain the existing tree canopy and trees along Babcock Street, and also kind of puts us back in a way that allows for adequate sight lines for vehicles exiting the garage and looking back to Babcock Street, and for pedestrians walking along Babcock Street. We have our kind of primary lobby and leasing at the southeastern corner of the building, and we have a bike storage room at the northeastern corner here, both facing the street, active uses, places where people are going to be in and out of the project to really kind of let them continue the public side of the project. And then you'll see we have our double-loaded drive aisle that stretches back through the site and accesses the bulk of the parking. There's a trash room at the rear of the project that does have some dedicated service paths that would get it out into the loading area. There is an off-street loading area here, as you can see, that ties into the project here. We have our stormwater management system that's located outside of the building footprint, site transformer that's accessible from a public right-of-way. I know that it sounds kind of hollow in a way, but, we have thought about trying to minimize the impact of the size of the footprint on the site, and also making sure we're accommodating and planning for a lot of these features that we know are going to need to be in place as we get into more detailed engineering and development of the project. All the way around the building, you're looking at the closest really setback and pinch point being at the very northeasternmost corner, where we're a little under 8 feet from the side property line here. But in all other cases, we're trying to stay at least 9.5 feet, if not more, away from the property lines, up to 10 and 11 as we're looking along the west and the south sides here. We get to the upper floor, typical double-loaded corridor condition, where we have staircases on either end, and our elevator, which ties into the lobby down on the first floor. And obviously, this carries up through the building. We're looking at a roof plan where we would have our rooftop condensers serving all of our units and our common areas within the building, centered on the building footprint to remove them from sight lines from around the project, but also to kind of consolidate them within the footprint for just service, access, use, and layout. And here we're looking at a section which is just enlarged from the site section we had seen before, in case we need it for questions. The height of the building, if you were to measure from the surface of the parking slab to the upper edge of the parapet along the roof, is 55 feet 8 inches. So that's its overall height. You lose about 8 feet at the backside from grade. So when you're up at about this side, you take about 8 feet off the height. You actually take about 2 feet off of the height from where the grade hits the front of the building here. And then we also are proposing a 6-foot-high decorative fence that would extend around the north, south, and west property lines, and would also include vegetative screening that's about 6 or 7 feet tall, to help also kind of screen that lower level where we have that parking area and some of that for the first residential floor, which would kind of fall into that buffer area. So we're looking quickly at just some elevations of the project, which are taken straight from some of the other conceptual images you had seen. And we can use these for discussion purposes if we need. This is the side elevation that faces the existing multifamily building, so this is the south elevation of the project. I should have stated this is the elevation that faces Babcock Street. So on the left-hand side of the image, what you do see is the actual piece of the building that touches Babcock Street, and on the right-hand side of the image, that's the piece that's recessed back, where the building turns in an L shape on the rear portion of the site. As we move to the back of the project, this is the end of the building that faces the Stedman Street butters. So this is the western side of the project. And then this is the easternmost side of the project. So you see on the right-hand side of the image, this small portion is the piece that faces the abutters to the north of the project, but we also do have this other longer elevation, which is set a little bit further back from the plane of this view, and that is also part of the northern elevation of the building. So the conceptual landscape plan that we had discussed, we're talking about providing a kind of grassy landscaped lawn area with trees, maintaining some of that existing trees cover along Babcock Street, and trying to preserve the overall existing character of the street because of how it ties in with the rest of the street itself. And you can see that we're scattering various plantings, both deciduous but also coniferous, along the perimeter of the building, proposing them to kind of be between 6 and 7 feet on day one, and then wrapping all of that with this decorative fence that is transparent. You can see through it, and we're really relying on the shrubbery to kind of provide a lot of that other screening itself, but we don't want it to feel like the building is walled off from its surroundings either. So we're trying to be conscious about using the landscape rather than just a hard fence to create that sort of separation. So that concludes just our kind of introductory presentation. We're happy to answer any questions.
Selectman Daley.
I do have a question. I can't remember exactly, but it seemed to me when you showed some other buildings that were similar height in the area, they all had like courtyards, though. That wasn't the solid block that you were proposing. Am I correct in that impression?
So you're talking about, I'm going to go back to the context real quick. This would be an easier way to do it. So you're talking about a building such as this one, right?
Yeah.
you're talking about, this, for example, is to the south of the proposed project's site? So this is
Yeah.
one example, right, where you have a kind of a courtyard condition?
You're right.
You're talking about. So,
Oh,
so this building, you can see it right here. This building, which is the one we're just looking at, we're looking at the two different buildings here. So this is the end of Babcock, of the building that sits on Babcock Street to the south of the project site. So that, it does have a courtyard, as you're talking about. And then there's an open parking lot in front of the other four-story building, which sits separate from that building. When you look up where Freeman Street ties into Babcock Street, you do see there, again, you're talking about, you know, some of those other existing multifamily buildings that have kind of a courtyard condition or some sort of space
Well,
in the middle.
just to me, it seems like in terms of light, in terms of greenery, there's a different feeling to them than what you're proposing.
There's a slide that really hit me, and it's the elevation of the north side looking south. Keep going.
Yeah, I'll try to do this right again.
Yeah, that's the guy. Wow, that one really hit me. Because I'm looking at that poor little single-family house just surrounded.
With this proposed building looming over it.
Yeah.
It's,
So it seems to me really need to do some work trying to relate the building a little more to its surrounding, especially on that side. Boy, that one really hits me. Yes, Selectman Heller.
This project feels massive compared to its neighbors. Even though some of its neighbors are 3 or 4-story buildings, it's this, because of the massing of it, because the fact that there's no courtyard, because there's no space, you know, occupying every square foot of the lot with a building, you're completely overwhelming the site and the neighbors. And it doesn't seem to me that is what you're supposed to be doing, is to fit into the neighborhood, and you're not. You're imposing on the neighborhood.
Selectman Franco?
One of the characteristics of many of the single-family homes on Babcock Street is a generous setback from the street, usable open space. I see that you are planting some trees and shrubbery around. I'm wondering if you can give a sense of the size of that green space that you'll be, the total square footage of the green space.
We don't have a calculation of that total green space at this time. We haven't gotten to that level of detail on the project. And really, the reason I say that is because I don't want to talk about green space, and then when we get into designing exactly where we need walkways, and I think that's something that's a number we'll definitely have as we get into the ZBA process, but it's not something we have yet.
But it's fair to say that it's not usable open space. It's occupied by trees and shrubbery and perhaps some flowers and...
Right. A bulk of for the residents of the project, most of their usable open space would be in the form of private balconies that are kind of just scattered around the elevation.
Where would the private balconies be?
So you can see them. So you can see them along the elevation here. There are several on the back, and there's some that are tucked in the inside corner where the building turns.
In looking at the project eligibility letter application, I noticed that Boston University is cited as the closest school. So is that indicative of your marketing strategy for apartments? Is your market for the affordable units going to be students? No, for the market units. So most of the units are market units ranging in rents for studios, 2,100 to 4,500 for 3 bedrooms. So, if... So so the answer is no to undergraduate students, but graduate students.
Or professors.
Or Yeah, come to the microphone, because this is being televised.
I'm saying theoretically, someone who works for Boston University is not off limits to being a tenant of ours. But, so professors, staff, theoretically graduate students, yes. But undergraduate students, I'm unaware of any that are I'm unaware of any undergraduate students that are tenants of ours currently in Brookline. So.
Selectman
At
Franco?
our properties, yeah.
So I see that you're putting the mechanicals on the roof of the building. I wonder how you're planning on venting the parking. Is that going to be mechanical venting? Is it going to be just open air with openings on 3 sides of the first floor? What's the plan?
So in this type of project, it would be a hybrid system. It would be a combination between mechanical and also natural ventilation. What that means here is from about the midpoint of the garage moving east, there's enough open area to be able to move air out of the garage, but we need some supplemental equipment at the back side of the garage to help move that air through. So it's not a fully mechanical system, it's kind of a hybrid between the two.
So that fan would be on the first floor. It wouldn't be an internal system where it sucks air out and vents out the roof.
It wouldn't send anything up through the building, that's correct.
Selectman Green?
In your presentation, you mentioned that you're trying to come up with some ideas to increase parking. Do you have some current thoughts on what those ideas would be?
We do. What we've been considering, and as we've discussed on several other projects of this type, is a semi-automated parking system that would effectively allow us to almost double our capacity. We're not going to get to a point, at least in this project, where we feel we'll be able to achieve a 1-to-1 parking ratio. I think really the next threshold that we feel is viable is kind of in the 0.65, 0.68 range, based on some of our preliminary studies. But these systems they're intended for end user use. There's no valet or attendant who operates them for you, and they are fully designed to fit within the layout that we've kind of planned here today. So we're kind of taking a look at those as options to see what benefits they could yield in helping us increase the parking capacity.
Do you have the height on the parking area to handle it?
So we've pre-planned to know that we may need more height in the parking area, and based on where the garage sits and where the parking starts, the way that we would accomplish the extra height would be to take the actual entry ramp and to slope it slightly downward and to further depress the elevation of the garage slab rather than raising the whole building.
Selectman Heller?
How many trees are on this site?
I don't know at this time.
How many of the ones that you don't know about are you going to cut down?
I don't know.
You have no idea about how many trees you're going to cut down to build this project?
That's not something we've looked at in detail yet.
Well, how many are you going to leave?
It's not something we've looked at in detail at this time.
I would suggest that you're being disingenuous. You know you're going to cut them all, and that there are lots of mature trees on this property. So you talk about the vegetation that will screen in the back of the property, but really there's not going to be anything left, is there?
We haven't looked at it in any detail.
Any other questions from the board before I open it to the public? Okay, a number of people have signed up in advance, and I'll call them first, and then I'll go to the sign-up sheet. So David Ruchnick, and then Gina Crandall is on deck.
Oh, is it time?
evening. My name is David Ruchnick. I live at 117 Stedman Street. As you just heard, I will be the first of several speakers who live on Stedman Street. We are all abutters on the west side. You've heard a bit of that described, of this proposed project. We will be, despite what you just heard, substantially and very negatively impacted by this project. Before going any further, I would like to thank the Board of Selectmen for listening to our concerns and for taking them seriously. We know that in recent months you have had many meetings like this one. You had 9, I just heard. I've been to a few myself, and we greatly appreciate the time and the effort you put into them. I think you're doing a service to the town. Next thing I want to say is just simply this. We welcome affordable housing in our neighborhood. Recently, the Pine Street Inn obtained and renovated 2 buildings on Beale Street. It's about a block from our homes. The result was 30 units of affordable housing. As far as I know, not a single objection was raised against it. Certainly none was raised by the members of our group. We welcome the Pine Street project because it showed great respect and fit very well into the fabric of our neighborhood. There are trees and open space around the structure, and it is a pleasure to walk by it, as my wife and I do on a regular basis. By contrast, we object strenuously to the Babcock Street proposal because its site is utterly inappropriate, and it would have substantial and harmful impacts on its neighbors. The proposed building, as you just heard, occupies virtually the entire lot and is 5 stories high. Simply put, it is far too big, and it would destroy the character of its immediate surroundings. It would tower over us, despite these mitigating efforts that we heard proposed. It would simply tower over us, and you'll see some visual evidence of that very shortly from my colleagues. So that we will not be repeating ourselves tonight, my neighbors will each speak to a distinct issue. Our final speaker will be Mr. Arthur Krieger, our attorney. They will make 2 arguments. First, that the site is simply inappropriate for a building of this size. Second, and this is very important, the application contains inaccuracies and at times is simply misleading. At a very minimum, then, the PEL application should be denied until a complete and accurate application is submitted. Recent email from Ashley Clark is evidence for how incomplete this application and inaccurate this application is. As of course you know, the Coolidge Corner area is now being extensively developed. You know better than I. By our count, there are 7 40B projects underway. Our neighborhood, our very precious neighborhood, is one of the most vibrant combinations of the urban and the residential, not only in Boston, but in the entire country. We believe that it is at risk. We therefore urge the Board of Selectmen not simply to ask that this proposal be modified, but to reject the application completely. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was 3 minutes on the button.
Good evening. My name is Gina Crandall. I live at 117 Stedman Street. And I'm a town meeting member in Precinct 8. One of the reasons living around Coolidge Corner is so good is due in part to its design as a streetcar suburb. Streetcar suburbs had 2 very different parts. There were the streetcar streets where higher density housing and commerce were, and then there were the homes that were built nearby to project a rural ideal. Something today we might call something more like spaciousness. Just as we do today, early 20th century folks wanted a spacious landscape and walkable public transport. The rural ideal is expressed in the scale and detailing of the homes, and particularly in the open spaces surrounding them. Even when the building of single-family homes peaked around 1920, and 3- and 4-story apartment buildings were built later, they have always included open space in the form of courtyards, rear and front yards. In answer to your question about that, I think the next drawing will help. But you don't have to dig up history to know which streets had streetcars. They're still easy to recognize: Harvard Street, Beacon Street, and Comm Ave. All three are lined with businesses that reach to the sidewalk, and open space is rare. But Babcock Street never had streetcars or businesses. The proposal for 134 Babcock would demolish a 100-year-old home to increase the density to more than 10 times that of the existing property. The shorter length of the L-shaped building is as long as a football field is wide. And the longer length of the building is more than half the length of a football field. But the more egregious aspect of the proposal is that it would become the only building on Babcock Street that would have no open space. A 10-foot strip around the building and a loading dock are only for machines. And I can tell you that trees do not grow in 10-foot spaces. Barely a small shrub would grow in a 10-foot space after it's a few years old. On the left, we look at Babcock Street from Comm Ave to Freeman Street, and on the right from Harvard Street to Freeman Street. The blue shading that identifies commercial buildings with no open space occurs on Harvard Street and Comm Ave, as it should, nearly a half mile in either direction from 134 Babcock. The proposed building brings the scale of commercial density to the spaciousness of Babcock Street, where it doesn't belong.
3 minutes.
Brookline's housing production plan, which was approved by the state DHCD in November, reconfirms the value of the streetcar suburb. The blue opportunity corridors for potential new housing units are the former and current streetcar streets where higher density would be appropriate. The blue triangle on the map shows where the Babcock Street building would be. It is not even close to the yellow areas that were identified as opportunity nodes for new housing or new affordable or mixed-use housing in Brookline.
Okay.
The sites of 4 other 40B, I have a neighbor who will give me her time. Could I have another minute?
Another minute.
The sites of the other 40B projects in Coolidge Corner are located on former or current streetcar streets in commercial areas and up against wide sidewalks. Some of the buildings have retail spaces, such as 55 Harvard Street with its large glass windows at the street level. Buildings of the type proposed here are popping up all over the country in urban areas where development's booming, but they're mixed-use buildings where ground floor retail hugging the sidewalk is animated by commerce. The architects of the proposed building describe it as having large storefront windows on the ground floor, essentially acknowledging the urban commercial nature of this building, even though those large storefront windows surround garage doors. The lifeless ground floor doesn't belong where the homes of a streetcar suburb express the rural ideal, and it knows it. With its storefront windows, it wants to be on a streetcar street, and we think that's where it belongs. We urge the Board of Selectmen to enforce the housing production plan, and asking the PEL application be denied because the site is inappropriate and would have significant impact on neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Christine Goldman. I live at 121.
Carrie Staff is up next.
That's me.
Yep.
Is it all right if I allow?
Yeah.
I'll just repeat that. I'm Christine Goldman. I live at 121 Stedman Street, which is directly behind the proposed building. The Brookline Housing Protection Plan, HPP, was recently approved by the state's DHCD. Brookline's HPP is guided by 7 qualitative goals and received input from community members in a March 2016 meeting. Goal number 4 of this HPP plan is neighborhood integrity and stability. So the participants in the March 2016 community meeting are quoted as saying they're concerned with loss of green space and the loss of sunlight due to taller buildings. And we present tonight some shadow studies that depict shadows created on, number 1, the Stedman Street side properties where we live, which are on the west, and number 2, on the public green space across from the proposed building, This is the Albert Scott Memorial Square on Babcock Street. You'll recognize it as the Green Triangle. He was a World War I hero, and there are many memorial squares throughout Brookline. So this is the March equinox, 8 a.m., 9 a.m., 10 a.m., and 11 a.m., all blocking our houses and our yards. And by 4 p.m., the park is blocked by the large shadow of the building. In June, the similar occurrence is seen where the 7 a.m. shadow is on our homes, and as we move through 7 a.m., 8 a.m., 9 a.m., 10 a.m., 11 a.m., our homes and our gardens, backyards are shadowed. Again, in the afternoon, the 4 p.m. is on the Memorial Park, and anyone who is wanting to sit out there at this renovated, beautiful park, which has 4 new benches, a sidewalk, shrubbery, trees, small trees on the perimeter, which have some shade, but just enough for people to enjoy. They won't be able to enjoy much of that, as the vegetation may very well not survive that much shadow. So the proposal to build this building should be rejected, as it violates the goals of the neighborhood integrity and stability set forth by the HPP, and it impacts a tremendous amount of intrusion on us as neighbors behind the site. Thank you.
Thank you. Carrie and John Anderson is after Carrie.
Hi, I'm Carrie Staff. I live at 123 Stedman Street, the second floor of Christine's home, who just spoke. My husband and I went through this application with a fine-tooth comb and have identified, we have a letter right now that lists 5 pages long of inaccuracies, omissions, irregularities, you might call them. I had intended to submit that this evening, except that at 7:30 when I left the house, I learned that the proposal that we've been reviewing is not the one that you all have seen or that the planning department has received. Apparently, there is one portion of the proposal that was inadvertently cut and pasted into the proposal from another project in Brookline, 40 Center Street. We were going to mention that, and we were unable to understand the true project narrative for this project. It included a major portion of the proposed site development description, the existing site constraints. It was unable to determine whether they were from this project or 40 Center Street, and the proposed site development description also entirely referred to the 40 Center Street project. So my letter, my husband's and my letter that we had prepared is now partially inaccurate because we have not had a chance to review the new project site narrative. In addition, I appreciated the architect's presentation tonight. A number of the slides that are in there we have not seen. I can enumerate them for you if you'd like, but that will use up my 3 minutes, and maybe I should put them best into the letter. What I really wanted to talk about tonight, in addition to the site plan, the site narrative that was incorrect, was the fact that 4 abutting properties on Stedman Street and Manchester Road, totaling 7 families, were not depicted in the original proposal, the application that we have seen. There were no photos of those homes. 2 adjacent properties were listed. They were the immediate left and immediate right of the property. You'll see on the left, I haven't labeled it, but that's one on this slide, but it's 120, I believe 120 Babcock Street, and to the right is 140 Babcock Street. So the proposal mentioned 2 adjacent properties. It did not mention an abutter who is further on Babcock Street. The owner is here tonight. He'll be speaking separately, 148 Babcock Street. Then, as you wrap around the corner of Manchester Street, there is a property at the corner of Manchester and Stedman. It is in the local historic district, and it is connected to a carriage house behind it with the address of Stedman Street. So that property was not depicted. Out my property at 121, 123 was not depicted, and neither was 117, 119, or 115 Stedman Street. So all of those properties were not photographed in the project.
Please
They were,
conclude.
sorry, okay. So, and then what I really wanted to talk about was the elevation. So here you can see 134 and 138, there's significant elevation there. It's unclear from the application whether it is the 7 feet that the architect mentioned. We counted 9.5 or more. Here's the back of the property, 115 Stedman Street, taken from a certain distance. You can see the significant rise to the back of the property. This is next, 117, 119, again, significant rise to the property line. My property, the green fence lines, that is where the property line is. And again, here, this is looking down the western line of the property there. The green is the property line, sort of looking west, and the pink, I don't know if you can tell it's pink, the Babcock Place northwest corner is there as well. So I will provide all of those for you. But there is significant grading in the back. This is the most recent site survey that we had seen. This is inaccurate, as is the new one, and I'll conclude there. Thank you.
Thank you. John Anderson and Guy Staff is after.
Thank you. John Anderson is my name. I've lived at 119 Stedman Street since 1994 with my wife, Jody Manasfit, who's here tonight. I think some of the words you heard from the architect in looking at the proposed project from the northeast were dark, ominous, and hoping to blend with trees. I take this language, this is a quotation from the site approval application. There is a heavily meaning I think vegetated buffer along the western edge of the property that provides visual privacy and screening from the abutting residential neighborhood. That would be so great if that were true. But I submit to you that it is not. If you, let's see if I don't have, do I have a pointer here? I don't. But in the left-hand photograph, you'll see, first of all, that the property lines are in yellow. And to the immediate left of the left-hand photo is our house, the one with the tight, square top of the roof. The fundamental thing about this photo is, in aerial view, is it shows that our trees that would ideally provide a screen, a visual screen, and some relief from this massive property that's proposed, are all at the back of the property line. Now, as you remember, there's only 10 feet from the building. The footprint of the building in the right-hand photo shows the massing effect. There's 9 feet or 10 feet at the south margin, the bottom of the screen. There's 10 feet at the back of the property. There's 8 feet as described at a minimum at the southeast part of the L. Northeast part of the L. But I just call your attention to how close the foundation of the building is to the edge of the property. So I want to take a minute and digress into root science here. This is from the University of Minnesota Department of Natural Resources. Hardwood tree roots extend 2 to 3 times the drip line, that's the crown radius, beyond the tree. 60 to 70% of the roots are actually within 3 feet of the surface. 60% of absorption occurs outside the radius of the crown, and a 20% root crush. That's a garbage truck or a mechanical going over those roots or severing those roots weakens a tree, making it vulnerable to disease. A 40% root crush or severance will kill a tree and destabilize it such that it has to be removed as a hazard. Now, this is looking in the left-hand photo, see the property stake line which is to the left of the fence, meaning toward our house. And we're looking down the fence line. You can see the power lines at the top running parallel to the fence line. That line is, in fact, the great majority of our trees in the property. They are at the property line. They are within 10 feet of the foundation wall. That puts them in immediate harm's way for any construction that goes back to whether it's a retaining wall that's trying to bury a massive structure or whether it's sitting on top. Doesn't matter. If
Please
you go
conclude.
to
3 minutes, 3.5 minutes.
Okay, and at the right margin, you're looking from north to south behind 121, 123, and you'll see once again, that's the same fence line and the same trees in jeopardy. This detailed map, the red marks at the back line show that the trees are on the tree line, and you will see that the red marks at the bottom of the map show, in fact, that all the trees that exist at the site are essentially under the footprint of the building. They will all be gone. Another loss
Please
would be
conclude.
this. The 22, just 30 seconds from my wife, please. 22-inch red oak, that's at the curb cut. You notice that the architect's drawing didn't show that tree because that's a beautiful Brookline town tree that will be sacrificed to this project. So I submit to you the Babcock Place project application is factually inaccurate and misleading with regard to vegetation, visual screening, and impact on multiple abutters to the west of the project. The westerly abutters' trees in the corridor along the property line will be killed or destabilized by the proposed Babcock Place construction, leaving these abutters with no effective visual screen despite project architects' claims to the contrary. The Babcock Place project application should be denied on the basis of factual inaccuracy and misleading characterization of its impact on abutters. Thank you for listening.
Guy Staff and David Fox is on deck.
Thank you. My name is Guy Staff. I live at 123 Stedman Street. You heard from my wife, Carrie. I will be very brief. We heard parking mentioned and the phrase exploring more, looking at other strategies. Not only is there a parking issue with more people coming to this site, but there's also an existing issue. I'll keep this really brief. I think everybody in this room knows that parking is fairly limited in this area. The 40B proposals have talked about town lots, so town lots are getting leaned on a little bit. The nearest one to this site is a third of a mile away. Nearby lots and off-street spaces are full, including one owned by the developer that's here with us this evening. So it's a scarce thing. Here's the issue. Currently, on this site, there are 42 cars parked. If you assume that for the 6 units that are here, 3 cars, so if you use the multiplier that's currently in use for Babcock Place proposal, 6 units equals 3 cars. If you assume that 3 of those cars go into the new building, you've got 39 cars displaced. So the question that I would have for the folks with the proposal is, where are the 39 cars going to go? And I think that's an issue that the town is going to have to grapple with in some way. And the people that are currently renting will be displaced. It's an issue in the area. The math is on the bottom. We have copies of the slides for folks. And just in the interest of gaining back some of the time, that's the key point that I want to make here, is that we've got displaced cars that are going to need to find a home somewhere else. Thank you.
Thank you. David Fox.
Mr. Chairman, I'm Art Krieger, counsel for the neighbors that you just heard. And
Are you signed up?
Yes, my name is on the list.
I don't see it.
David.
Okay, so I'll finish the
Sorry.
list that have...
I thought I was signed up with the others, but in any case,
David Fox is next.
Okay, Mr. Fox has agreed to let me go after my clients.
So
if that's
is
acceptable.
Mr. Fox, then are you giving up your space? So, Mr. Fox.
Okay.
I just have a short thing to read. So, my
family lives at 125 Stedman Street, behind the proposed development site. In addition to the concerns about the property and the neighborhood, we have a number of health concerns related to this project. My wife, who's a nurse practitioner, has the credentials to address these issues, is unable to be here this evening, so she sent this statement, which my household agrees with wholeheartedly. We are concerned about the noise. We have a family member who is going through a lengthy, painful recovery, who basically needs rest and quiet. Her rooms are on the back side of the house. Because of how we're structured, we don't have another good option for her, so she will have nowhere to go to get away from the noise. So the further from the property edge and the smaller the scope of the project, she will have less to suffer. Another concern is demolition dust and the potential for toxins and carcinogens to be released into the air. Those buildings that are coming down are very old, so how do we know there's no asbestos or lead or silica? There's certain to be mold. Our house is circa 1898, renovated carriage house. It's extremely drafty no matter what we do. All three of us are asthmatic, and my wife has a debilitating mold allergy. We have already had to do major mold abatement, and we don't want new organisms blowing in. Another concern is that we are in the Grafham McKay Local Historic District. Our home would sit in the shadow of and downhill from a much larger building of a very modern architectural style, which, as everybody has stated, is out of character with the neighborhood. We also have a backyard with lots of plants, both old trees and newer fruit-bearing trees. Some are in proximity to the property border, actually very close to the border, within 10 feet. And we don't want them damaged by construction or compromised by the lack of sunlight. We want to know that the proper precautions are going to be taken, and that includes not just a cyclone fence, but an actual impermeable barrier such as whatever she wrote here, and whatever the current industry best practice is for containing demolition dust. We want there to be more space between the edge of our property and the edge of the new building, what we saw in the original proposed plans. We understand that from the property owner's point of view, the property is underutilized, and we are pro-affordable housing. Somewhere in between not doing anything or building a giant anomalous cube that looms over the neighborhood and makes our lives unnecessarily difficult both during and after construction. There must be a reasonable compromise that allows for new construction that is big enough to be profitable, but reasonably scaled back to be considerate of the neighborhood.
Thank you. Next one up is Juan Zhou. Then I'll go to the list. Then Mr. Krieger, you're up next.
Sorry. All right. I'm just going to talk. Thank you so much. My name is Yuan Zoy, and I'm living on 148 Babcock Street, which is on the north side of the building. And I'm just very concerned about this proposal. You know, throughout the proposal, we never see a photograph of that building, how big they were sitting on the street, which I'm not that very skillful Photoshop, but I barely put their picture into the photograph, on the Babcock Street, which you can see the building really out of proportion and really destroy the community, destroy the very old, charming Brookline, those kind of feeling.
And second, from my backyard, which is from the north side looking east, the building, there's a small house, belonging to the developer. And right now, they all, matching picture the building with a flat top to try to compare with their new proposal building, but which is not. All of the old buildings pitched roof, and they don't have those kind of a massive feeling. And when you put on this 5-floor building from the north side, look at east, you're totally blocking the whole north side of the sunlight and totally changing the atmosphere. My house belongs to this historical district, and for the very same reason, we formed the historical sites. But now, if we allow this proposed building to be built, we're just totally against ourselves. I just don't think that this is a right thing to do. And plus, their old building, they propose to tear down, which is really sad. Could be renovated to be a very, very beautiful, with the characters, those kind of old feeling building, should be a very adding to our community. Not try to build a very commercial, I won't say ugly, but probably try to, not using those words, really try to those building, those kind of characters destroy the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
I already write a letter, I will submit it.
Mr. Krieger. Sorry.
Thank you. I've never had that much buildup before. So I'm representing the Stedman Street neighbors, 117, 19, 21, 23, from whom you've heard. I just want to focus on a couple of quick factual points. I saw on the site sections tonight and in the application that it's 90 feet plus or minus from the rear wall of the proposed building to the neighbors' houses on Stedman. I believe that's wrong. I believe it's more like 60 or 70. That's number one. Number two is I saw that it showed a 6 to 8 foot drop in the elevation from the back of the site down to the neighbors' yards. And I saw that myself the other night, and I believe it's more like 12 or 14 feet. You saw pictures from the neighbors that showed you that drop, but it's much more than 6 or 8. Number three, 9 feet 1 inch setback at the northwest corner. That's the corner behind 121, 123 Stedman. 9 feet is essentially from the end of this rolling table to the main desk there. And at that main desk, you'd have a 55-foot building, or 47 feet if you account for the sinking of the garage.
Which corner is it?
Northwest corner.
Northwest.
So top left corner as you look at the plans. That was 9 feet 1 inch. Imagine if that far away from a 50 plus or minus story building. And then the 10 or 12 or 14 foot drop off beyond that. So the building is effectively 6.5 stories above the neighbors' houses. And no photoshopping and outlines and images and anything that you saw captures that it's basically twice as big. And that close. The fourth thing is the vegetative screening. John Anderson referred to that. He quoted you the one sentence from the application. 6 to 7 feet is what we heard, vegetative screening, 6 to 7 feet tall. At planting, maybe they'd grow a little bit, but in a 10-foot space on the west side of a 50-foot wall, they're not growing very much. All the screening would be on the neighbor's property, and so what he explained was that the neighbor's trees would be jeopardized as well. There effectively would be no screening from this building from the neighbors on Stedman Street. None on the applicant's site that would be anywhere above their fence line, and all of it jeopardized on my client's sites. I want to put this quickly, if I may, put this in legal context. The regulations that you're operating under, that DHCD will be operating under, require a narrative description of the approach to building massing, the relationships to adjacent properties, and the proposed exterior building materials. We heard a lot about materials. All of the project narrative talks about materials, None of it talks about the approach to building massing and the relationships to adjacent properties. And of course, the materials are exactly what can change. As Mr. Engler said, lots of these details can change. The building materials are the least of it. It's the massing and the relationship to adjacent properties that the application totally fails to address. The project eligibility criterion that's most relevant here, under which DHCD will be operating, is that the design has to be generally appropriate for the site, taking into account massing, topography, integration into existing development patterns. Again, that's relationship to the neighboring houses and other factors. So the application fails to describe the key factors that I've mentioned, and there's no basis for anybody to make a finding that it satisfies those criteria that I just went through. The project design is not even generally appropriate for this site. There are inaccuracies and inconsistencies, as you've heard. There was the substituted project narrative section that came about at 646, came out of the town offices for the first time. Anybody heard of that? What really should happen here is we should see the neighbors should have an opportunity to see the slides as well as the board, and the hearing should be continued for the inaccuracies and inconsistencies to be straightened out so that you have a complete and accurate application in front of you. If you do not choose to continue the hearing, then the neighbors request that you urge in your letter, urge DHCD to deny the project eligibility letter on the grounds that I've gone through, supported by the facts adduced by the neighbors. One procedural question, which is simply, I didn't bring a letter because I wanted to be here tonight and then think about a letter. I take it I can submit a letter by the end of the week. You're submitting yours?
Oh, yeah. We're not, we're going to be discussing this next week. Our deadline with mass housing is?
Week from Friday. So after your next meeting.
Right. So, and then we have established a practice of attaching any correspondence that we get to our letter to DHCD. So anything you send to us will go, not to DHCD, it'll go to mass housing. You also have the option of addressing comments directly to mass housing.
Right. I'll probably send you my letter since my clients are submitting their letters to you as well.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next one up is Diana Spiegel, and after that is Kate Korsendorfer, and that's the end of the folks who have signed up.
My name is Diana Spiegel. I'm a town meeting member and have lived on Stetson Street with my husband for almost 40 years. We live near 134 Babcock, opposite the intersection of Freeman with Babcock, and we travel on Freeman Street daily. We have long appreciated 134 Babcock's contribution to our neighborhood. It will be an enormous loss to the neighborhood if 134 Babcock Street is replaced by Babcock Place. I want to quote from some past remarks which articulate this better than I could, emphasizing the historic nature of 134 Babcock to remind you of the respect and affection residents have long had for it and its role in the neighborhood. Article 13 of the Fall 2008 town meeting sought to downzone a number of North Brookline properties from multifamily to 3-family or 2-family, and 134 Babcock was one of these. From petitioner Bill Powell's explanation, and I quote, "The nearby proposed 134 Babcock Street Victorian house is a recognized visual landmark. When residents drive or walk down Freeman toward the Freeman Street Triangle and Babcock Street, it frames a view flanked mostly by houses and buildings from the turn of the 19th and early 20th century and large shade trees. It is proposed for inclusion into the adjoining T5 2-family district." In October 2008, I wrote the Selectmen regarding that Article 13, and I focused on 134 Babcock. I quoted from Carla Benka's wonderful 1982 booklet, produced when she was the staff person for the Brookline Historic Commission, which is called A Guide to North Brookline, 5 Walking Tours. That booklet profiled the most noteworthy buildings out of many in North Brookline. The last house, and I quote, "The last house on this part of the tour, 134 Babcock Street, is a fine example of the colonial revival style, complete with a symmetrical facade, Palladian window, swan's neck pedimented dormers, fan light and side lights at the front entrance, and dental detailing. It was constructed in 1898-99 for W.A. McKinney, a lighting fixture manufacturer, and is quite similar to a number of houses built during the same period, which are included in Tour 4. And I note that Tour 4 travels through what is now the Graffham McKay Local Historic District. 134 Babcock is visually similar, among others, to 122 Naples, which was built by Peter Graffham and is now part of the LHD. Furthermore, in 2015, Babcock Street was highlighted by the Boston Globe as the best street in Brookline. 134 Babcock is certainly one of the chief contributors to the streetscape which the Globe praises. In the Globe's article, which described the best streets in Greater Boston, these streets win honors for their curb appeal, amenities, and other distinctions. The Globe wrote, Babcock Street, connecting Harvard Street in Brookline to Comm Ave in Alston. Babcock is a city street with a suburban feel, thanks to trees shading the sidewalks on either side and tidy lawns fronting its Victorian-era single and multifamilies. Replacing 134 by Babcock Place would be particularly harmful to the neighborhood. As proposed, it is a building whose size and style is entirely out of character with its neighborhood. Its height, massing, and severe lack of setbacks or other open space would present particular hardships for the direct abutters. It also presents hardships to the greater neighborhood. It would replace a treasured visual historic landmark at a key location with a building more suitable as an office building in an office park, less harming the Babcock streetscape. I urge you to vote against the Babcock Place proposal. Thank you.
And the last one who signed up is Kate Korsendorfer, I'm sorry. And then I'll ask if anyone else wishes to speak.
Okay, hi. So as you indicated, my name is Kate Korsendorfer. I am an owner at 145 Babcock Street. So many of the depictions that we saw earlier in the proposal actually did show our building. We are basically the end unit at the corner of Babcock and Freeman. I am the primary trustee of that condominium. It's Mayflower Court Condominium Trust. We basically are pretty much right across the street from this proposed unit. I have more of a question, I think, and with some supplemental points to that, just to wrap up today. Has anyone done an evaluation or a review of traffic or any impact assessment on the additional potential congestion that these additional units will have on Babcock Street? As far as traffic is concerned, the reason I ask this is having been at this location at the corner of Babcock and Freeman for 14 years now, the triangular park at the corner of Babcock and Freeman that you saw in those pictures is highly traveled at all hours of the day with pedestrians, pets, children. And our unit in particular have been witness to many police incidents at the corner of Babcock and Freeman, associated with accidents, associated with people running that stop sign. We actually have Brookline Police sitting in our, I guess, moon-shaped building on a regular basis, dealing with speeding violations, moving violations associated with that stop sign. And I'm concerned that given the amount of traffic coming down Babcock Street, the issue with speeding, the fact that a lot of folks use Babcock and Freeman both as pass-throughs to that highly residential area, I'm concerned that this would only tax an already extremely busy intersection in a very residential area with many families, students, kids walking the street, especially during times when there are numbers of events, like at BU, for example, and other events at our school down at the end of Babcock Street. Has any consideration been made to that, or has any review of any traffic or violations has anything taken place?
That'll have to happen.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that'll be part of the comprehensive
That should
permit
definitely be
process.
something that is considered, because that is an issue at that intersection, and Brookline Police is there quite frequently dealing with it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else, actually, that gentleman has, and then Mr. Harris. Okay. Sir? And then Don Weitzman.
Good evening. I want to thank you for your time.
Tell us your name.
Sure. My name is Jamie Rojas. I'm the representative for the Stetson Freeman Condo Association, which is the building at the corner of Stetson and Freeman. And I speak on behalf of the two families that reside in that building. First of all, it was said before that if we have to repeat a point, just highlight the person who spoke the point and add to it. So Ms. Heller hit it right on the point. This building feels like a cruise ship that is floating down our street and parked at the end of a very critical intersection, which is what gives the landscape. When you come down on Freeman Street, and I do it all the time because I live there, you see that corner, and that's what adds to the neighborhood, and that's the point that gentleman over there was making. This building doesn't add, it takes away. I get constant parking people in front of my building on Stetson because there is not a lot of parking. It's a constant issue on the parking, people getting tickets, calling people at all hours in the night, et cetera, et cetera. I have a building behind my building where it was rented to students, and I could tell you, I feel it for the neighbors behind it because all the noise is going to be just tremendous. Obviously, my wife is a pediatrician doctor, and I second the comment that was made by the nurse. Not only do we have the construction of the school, and our children have to walk by the school, but now we're going to have this massive demolition activity, plus all the demolition, plus all the blasting. I don't know if they're going to blast or dig the earth. So that's the second point there. And most important of all is the fact that we don't mean ill. I mean, we're all for people making profit. We bought in Brookline because we can afford Brookline, and we intend to make money. And I do see his intent to make money, and we all for it. We all for public housing. We're all for these kind of things. I'm the first person to say that my first house was a subsidized house, and I believe in that tremendously. But this building, it's all the negatives. It doesn't add to anything. It's all the wrong thing. I mean, I just feel I left my son with a babysitter just to make it here, and I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Harris.
Thank you. My name is John Harris. I live on Osborne Road, just a couple blocks from the project. I ride my bike, I walk, and I drive on Babcock Street in front of this project. And I'm also a town meeting member from Precinct 8, the relevant precinct. I want to thank you folks on the Board of Selectmen, all of these hearings on all of these projects. Thank you very much. And I also want to back up something that David Kruchnick said earlier. Affordable housing is great. It is fine as long as it is in character with the neighborhood. I'm not going to say anything new, I don't think, but I'll say it very quickly. The renderings showed the building at 3.5. The renderings. Let me rephrase. The petitioner himself realizes that all the adjacent buildings are 3.5 stories from grade. The renderings were, first of all, above grade, second of all, 5 stories, second of all, 5+ stories because of the mechanical stack. The building is entirely too tall. Number two, the building takes up entirely too much of the lot with only the narrow strips on the sides. The building is entirely too wide. Number three, the North Brookline neighborhoods, we have a number of legacy trees that are 75 years old, 100, 125 years old, whatever. One by one, they are dying, and they are being cut down. And the tree in the front yard is apparently not in any of that condition. It would be a shame to cut down a legacy tree, one of the tall billowing trees that provide fantastic amount of shade and cool, when it still has years left to go in its lifetime. And finally, there's been allusions to the fans to vent the exhaust from the cars on the first floor parking. But let's be very clear about that. With the building bearing so close to the outer edges of the lot, on one or more sides, there will be fan noise that will be a great irritant to the neighborhood, to the immediate, the people in the houses immediately abutting on whatever sides those are. And those are the points I want to make, and I thank you very much. I also urge the rejection of this proposal. It's entirely too big, it's entirely too tall, it's entirely too much out of the character of a very nice neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Weitzman?
Good evening, Don Weitzman, and thank you for your time, and I'll try to be brief. I know this has been grueling. Up until a month ago, I lived on Babcock Street, on Buckminster Road in Precinct 12, where I'm a town meeting member. And as of a month ago, my new address is 104 Babcock Street. So this is very personal. This is 3 doors down. I love this neighborhood. I moved here on purpose because of it is a transit center, because of the diversity, because I have been a lifelong advocate of affordable housing. And by the way, I congratulate the town on moving this close to our 10% goal. But I just concur with everybody who's spoken tonight. I think it's remarkable that this has been such a one-sided conversation. There is not a debate here. This is an audience that supports all the right values, and we look at this thing. I look at the present 134 Babcock Street, and my heart soars. It's beautiful. It's part of what makes the charm of this neighborhood. And then I look at the renderings for what's proposed here, and it's like a stab in the heart. I mean, it's I know this is an emotional argument, and you can't take that to court. But this is out of scale. All of the usual zoning things of massing, of traffic impact, on and on, this doesn't meet any of those criteria, which leads me to my real point of being here, which is really a question back to the board. It would be a personal service and perhaps a service to the public who is not as aware as many of the people who have presented tonight to know in a 40B project, the developer is allowed to bypass many of our zoning criteria, but not all. And it would be, I think, a public service if somebody on the board could iterate those elements of our zoning ordinance, which in fact are not bypassed by 40B. Thank you.
I will look to our planning director to help us with that. Ms. Steinfeld?
Allison Steinfeld, Planning Director. Chapter 40B trumps all zoning and many other municipal bylaws.
But it does say something about the context of the neighborhood, does it not?
No, those are the design
Guidelines.
Design guidelines.
that mass housing is supposed to apply. But we've seen, and they don't apply very much of what their regulations, at least past practice.
I want to just explain to people a little bit. So the reason we had this hearing tonight is we are going to submit a letter to Mass Housing on this application with some of our concerns. But assuming they approve it, it does go to the Zoning Board of Appeals. And so you neighbors all need to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals hearings and bring these concerns that you brought to us tonight, because this body does not actually, we can weigh, we're invited by Mass Housing to weigh in, but on the actual process of granting the comprehensive permit, that's at the Zoning Board of Appeals. It's not this body. So, I appreciate you all coming tonight, and that will inform our letter. But I just want to make sure you understand that you need to continue bringing forward your concerns as this goes through the process.
So the next step is for us to submit a letter to Mass Housing summarizing our concerns, which speaking for myself, my concerns, and I suspect concerns of my colleagues mirror most of the concerns expressed by you folks. We've kind of established a practice of trying to summarize some of the issues, and then our planning department will turn that into appropriate language, which will then get reviewed by this board next week. There was a suggestion that we continue this hearing, but if we do that, we'll miss the Mass Housing deadline. We can certainly ask Mass Housing for an extension. We won't know if we would get an extension, so my feeling is we go with what we have, point out inaccuracies, and in the end, it's going to be up to Mass Housing. From what we've seen, and I'll just be blunt, Mass Housing has been approving stuff in other projects which have, to me, been mind-boggling. So just keep that in mind, unfortunately. In no particular order, and I'm relying on planning staff to put this into a cogent order so it'll be readable. The project doesn't match the characteristics of the neighborhood in massing, scale, the use of open space, and the project doesn't seem to provide the open space necessary so that the kind of vegetation that is characteristic of the neighborhood and on the property currently can live. The building itself, the design, appears to be commercial in its feel, in nature, and out of touch with the surrounding buildings. The architecture seems to be more appropriate to mixed use, at least, and that's a subjective judgment, but unless anyone disagrees with me.
No, I agree with you.
We should cite our housing production plan, and with the goal of protecting neighborhood integrity and stability, and point out how aspects of this project seem to go counter to that goal in our housing production plan. The shadow impacts of the site need to be, of the project need to be analyzed. That's actually a standard language in our letter. We should reference the fact that some of the neighbors have produced shadow studies and showed them to the board with quite dramatic impacts. We should reference, I don't know if some of the have all the cross-references to other projects been corrected? Because what I didn't see any reference to 40 Center Street.
There were a couple of paragraphs inserted that were striked.
So we should point that out. And a point that really stuck with me is the relation of this project, especially to close abutters. On the north side, the abutter seems to be surrounded by this building on on two sides. It seems to envelope the building and really gobble it up. Due to the nature of the elevation in the rear especially, and the way the topography on the site is established, the building appears to the abutters in the rear to be much higher than the stated height of the building. There are questions about the sufficiency of parking, citing the limited parking in the area. The nearby lots are full, and currently there are 42 cars on the site, and we're adding 62 units and then only replacing it with currently 31 spots. But even if that's increased, it's still not going to replace the spots. The noise needs to be analyzed, especially if we're talking about mechanical parking, and consideration to impermeable noise barrier. The fact that this borders the Graffin McKay Historical District should be noted, making the context of the site extra sensitive. We should note that it is tearing down a beautiful building that anchors a piece of the neighborhood. We should comment on the setbacks, especially with respect to vegetation. I already said that.
But I have to agree with you there. I think we have to emphasize that the fact that there's very little in the way of setbacks, no green space, no open space, is certainly undesirable from the neighbor's point of view and highly unusual for the location of this building.
Feel of an office building, kind of said that already. The impact of traffic in the location, especially given the proximity to the intersection, needs to be analyzed. Any other?
Also traffic and safety, because,
Right.
The other issue I think that should be mentioned is the issue of health that one of the speakers brought up. And we should just make sure that there's some effort to reduce the dust, mold, and other debris from the demolition to minimize the impact on, neighbors. I think that's really important.
Yeah, and when we're talking about the setbacks and the green and open space, I think the presentation we got was not really accurate when talking about trees and screening, because I don't think there's anything on this property that is proposed that would offer trees or screening.
So one thing that occurred to me about midway through the hearing, especially because of the discussion about the change in grade from across the parcel, is hydrology and stormwater runoff and drainage. So I think that's something that we request as standard language in our letters, but I want to make sure it's there, especially given the fact that we've got some grade changes here.
And we should also reference the the DHCD 40B design guidelines. We've done that with little impact in the past, so I don't have much hope for that, but we should do it anyway.
Possible.
It's
Once again, this is Mr. Rojas from Stepson and Freeman. I happen to have the experience to live in a building similar to this when I lived in Arizona. And when you have 62 units, and this building that I lived in had more units, the garbage that gets accumulated in 1 week in that garbage area in the back of the building The stench is unbelievable. Brookline only picks up once a week, and the building that is across from my street, I count, and they distributed the garbage along the wall, and I count 10 or 15 trash cans. This building, the trash section, the location of the trash bin, is going to be an issue for the neighbors.
Okay.
We don't pick up in buildings like of this size. They get private trash, so they can have it several times a week.
There'll have to be a trash management plan, but that's standard language. Anything else? Yeah.
I also think that we should include a paragraph, add a paragraph, similar to the one that you suggested about the housing production plan, about the relief that we've gotten from DHCD. Just highlight the fact that we've got several applications pending before us. It probably won't do anything, but it doesn't hurt to reinforce the point.
And so where do, we do, as you mentioned, append letters that we get from the public, and where do you want people to send things if they want to?
Tell us where.
Hi, good evening. I'm Ashley Clark. I've been emailing a lot of you and inundating your emails over the past few weeks. You can email me letters, and I forward them on to your office, so I think you've gotten dozens of emails from me. I think many of you already have my email. I've also got a group on my Outlook, so if you're not in the group, you can join it. It's a good time. So does anyone want me to say my email now, or?
Sure.
Okay, are you ready with your iPhones and pens? Okay, my email is aclark, ACLARK, and then the number 2 at brooklinema.gov.
Okay, that's the place to send it. Okay, so I think that concludes our hearing. So this is the first of a long road. Thank you.